There you go. Yep, I can hear you now.
For November 15th, 2021. With that, I'll pass it over to the clerk to get started.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We'll start with the land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we are on the lands of Anishinaabe and Beg Nation. This spot where we gather is the traditional lands of the Three Fires Confederacy, the Ottawa, Potawatomi, and Ojibwe. We also recognize that this land is now home to the Delaware Nation. This land was settled through the McKee Purchase Treaty of 1790, and we as beneficiaries of the treaty must recognize our responsibilities, including our collective responsibilities to the land and water. Mr. Mayor, we do not have any supplementary agenda this evening, and we have two disclosures of pecuniary interest for open session. One is Councillor Wright with regards to planning application 10D, and we also have one from Councillor Solomon with regards to item 10I. I will announce both of those at the time of the application. I'll pass it over to Planning Services now.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Madam Clerk, confirming please that you are seeing my presentation screen.
Yes, we can see it, Ryan. Thank you.
Thank you. The planning meeting process is as follows. 1, the clerk will announce each individual planning item. 2, the clerk will advise if any written submissions have been received regarding a planning item. If so, the clerk will read the written submissions that have been received. 3, for any items where a written submission is received, administration will proceed with presentation. 4, council will be asked if it has any questions of administration or the applicant if present. 5, council will be asked what action it wishes to take with regard to the item. Notice, if any person or public body that files an appeal of a decision of council in respect of the proposed applications does not make a submission to the municipal clerk before the proposal is approved, they are not entitled to appeal a decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal if otherwise eligible, unless in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to add the person or public body as party to the appeal. Information on council's actions tonight will be posted to the municipal website. All persons who have made a request or who have made a submission regarding a particular planning item will receive a notice of council's decision, including appeal procedures. Any other person who wishes to receive a notice of decision must submit a written request to the municipal clerk. Thank you.
Okay, 10A. Application for zoning bylaw amendment 1486134 Ontario Limited, Blackacre Crescent and Jomaya Boulevard, Community of Tilbury, West Kent. Mr. Mayor, we have no conflict of interest on this matter. We have 2 deputations and we have an agent on the line. We'll read the deputations now. The first deputation is from Jarrett Bezaire. Good evening. My name is Jarrett Bezaire. My family and I have lived in Tilbury for over 13 years. We moved to the Homestead subdivision in spring of 2018. I am writing to address the proposed zoning bylaw amendment concerning a property with footage on Blackacre Crescent, Queen Street South, and Essex County Road 46 in Block 23, Plan 987 in the community of Tilbury, known as roll number 3650-080-003-10708. I would like to register my opposition to the amendment of that is proposed. I feel that it is important to clarify that my opposition to the proposed amendment is not rooted in the NIMBYism. I am supportive of further development and densification of housing options in our community. It is important to build new homes to increase the housing supply so that families can continue to populate and live in our community. If we want our town to be both preserve and grow with new amenities, such as a high school, then our town's population must grow. The location of the bid is consistent with the municipality's priorities and fits with the official plan. My objection to the proposed amendment to this site plan is concerned with the development practices of the developer. The applicant has repeatedly proven to be a bad partner of the community, and their conduct has shown that they are not aligned with the best interest of the community, and they have shown nothing in recent practice to suggest this change. I would like to further expand my opposition. A summary of my points can be found below. 1, the development of lands in question was initiated in November 2019, not 2020, as the purpose and effect section of the document has outlined. To allow the construction of access, streets, curb cuts, etc., my side yard was destroyed. Fast forward to 2 years later and nothing has been done to remedy this situation. Compare this to Enbridge, who has connected a gas line through my yard in May and has repaired my grass in my yard. My neighbor's yard, 7 Homestead Drive, is also destroyed. I have asked for several sources about fixing my yard, including my counselors, and nothing has been done to fix this. Although this may seem like a trivial point to some, my side yard is one of the focal points to the passerbys entering the subdivision. I take great pride in caring for my yard and my property. In fact, while the property continued to switch hands before the current developer purchased it, I took over cutting the untended grass that abuts my property in 2018 and 2019. Fast forward to the present day, if one were to see pictures of the site in question, they would think that they are all in an abandoned subdivision, not in one of the nicest neighborhoods in our fair town. I was patient with this development and worked through the proper channels to have my yard repaired to no avail. It has been 2 years. The work is done in the area. There is no excuse for not taking care of this area, other than neglect and laziness on the part of the developer. Number 2, risk assessment in an issue for a developer back in the spring when the construction workers were working on the one home completed by the developer, they came to our home and told us to keep an eye on our children and to keep them out of the active construction site. That's fine, I can parent my children. My frustration with this was the mere hours later, the construction workers could be seen revving their engines and could be best described as drag racing one another down the street. This is terribly unsafe and downright reckless. What if a child had wandered onto the street? The workers should be ashamed. Perhaps the developer can pull themselves from watching the Fast and Furious movies to properly supervise their contractors. 3, site plan control. The current application site is littered with old garbage and refuse from workers who have been on site sparingly since November of 2019. They did a terrible job on cleaning up after themselves, and what's worse is they have left metal debris, old line coil, abandoned on one of the sites. Whether the developer wants to acknowledge it or not, there are other residents that live in the neighborhood, including many children. I have seen children, not mine, walking around the abandoned litter from the development. The very basic
I'm good.
idea
Thank you
of
very
cleaning
much.
up
Okay, all right, take care.
after yourselves, after you make a mess. It is lost on the applicant. Number 4, environmental concerns. The developer has lost a mound of dirt piled behind my home since November of 2019. They claim that this is topsoil to be reused. It is clay. The dirt mound is piled and grows unruly and noxious weeds every summer. I have spoken to my counselors about this as well. Nothing was done. The overgrown site has been found with standing water, a breeding ground for mosquitoes and West Nile virus every summer. This is something that I would expect to see behind a junkyard, not in one of the nicest parts of Tilbury. A big shout out to the municipality who's followed up on this matter over the past summer and was completely ineffective. When the construction workers have been sporadically on site, they have prevented others from completing basic maintenance jobs. For instance, they told the contractor who cuts the grass that on the property development that this was a union job site and he couldn't cut the grass. The contractor has had to plan his schedule around what the union will allow, even if it's the union that is working on a completely different part of the site. Number 5, the proposed row housing development is not consistent with other developments in the municipality. It's risk creating small, ugly, non-functional housing on tiny lots. The lot coverage amendment is not meant to densify the community housing option, but instead to cheaply cram as much housing together. This risk creating future slum-like conditions is one of the nicest housing areas of our town. They should be ashamed. Number 6, there is no mention of the issue of retention ponds in this amendment. Perhaps it is alluded to through the site control measure proposed by the municipality. Being vague with this developer is a huge oversight. It is rumored that the developer is trying to reduce the amount of retention ponds that would have created in this neighborhood. The retention ponds would act as a flood mitigation measure for this development. If this is true, this once again shows how the developer's proposal will cheapen the neighborhood. The increased housing density proposed by the amendment creates an increased flood risk for the neighborhood. If we cut or reduce retention ponds, the flood risk is shared through the existing infrastructure and the existing homeowners. The Homestead neighborhood is already one of the worst hit for flooding in Tilbury. If you want to confirm this, please come for a drive through our neighborhood after a couple of days worth of hard rain. You will see wet carpets, baseboards, etc. that litter the curb. But cutting back the retention ponds, the developer is making more of a risk for everyone else. This is not being a good neighbor, it is being a careless profiteer. Once again, there is no sense of risk management that applies, only cheap and quick. Do you want to be known as the council that has signed off on a cheap, quick development? Because of this, exactly what is before you in this proposal. Regardless of the voting outcome on this matter for the evening, I would like to receive some sort of follow-up from the municipality regarding my concerns, and I can be reached at the number provided below. Regards, Jarrett Brazier.
The next deputation on item 10A is from Justin Kritikos. I am writing regarding the zoning bylaw amendment proposal involving the houses to be built at the south end of Tilbury, located on the west side of Queen Street and north of Middle Line. The proposal is to reduce the interior side yard setback from 3.5 meters to 1.5 meters and increase the maximum lot coverage from 33% to 55%. Homesteads Drives, the road that surrounds the building site on two sides, has experienced flooding. It was hit especially hard in September 2018 when 6 inches of rain fell in 1 hour. By increasing the size of each house, there will be more hard surfaces and less porous surface to absorb the rainwater and snow melt. This increases the chance of flooding. When rain falls onto roofs, the water is transferred into the home sump pump pit and quickly pumped into the municipality's stormwater system. Increasing the roof size increases the strain on the municipality's stormwater system. The Tilbury Stormwater Master Plan presented at the community meeting in February 2020 indicated that the Homestead Drive is an area of concern for basement flooding, as suggested by its red zone status. Further strain on the stormwater system in this area is a serious concern for residents. I would like to identify research that has proven when the amount of non-porous material is increased in an area, it leads to an increased likelihood of urban flooding. There are many studies available online to discuss this. I would like to draw your attention to the following link from the Scientific Inquirer website. A quote from the above linked article reads, "The ever-expanding presence of large areas made up of non-porous material inundates cities and towns' stormwater systems. Essentially, these downpours cannot escape into the earth, and with stormwater drainage systems often at capacity during heavy floods, the water remains on the surface." I believe this further proves the point that increasing the size of houses slated for development will increase the chance of urban flooding in an area that's already prone to flooding. Problems with improper grading in this area slated for development have also caused flooding to property owners on Homestead Drive. This occurred on my property and was only resolved after I contacted councillors Harrigan and O'Shea for assistance. Eventually, Dillon Consulting dug a drainage ditch in March of 2020 to allow standing water to flow off the properties on Homestead Drive. Today, when you stand on Blackacre Crescent, it is obvious that the lots are higher than the existing lots on Homestead Drive. It appears that those lots will drain onto Homestead Drive properties if the current temporary drainage ditch is altered. Increasing the proposed housing sizes will further risk the risk of flooding to the existing homes on Homestead Drive. Finally, if this proposal is accepted, it will be the second accepted proposal in less than 10 years to modify the zoning plan. I did not recall the specific date that the previous proposal was accepted, but the application number was D-28TI 5017-0. This resulted in a change where all the homes in the affected area went from single dwelling to row houses, which increased the housing density. This new proposal further increases housing density, changing the overall feel of our neighborhood and impacting stormwater capacity. Therefore, I am in opposition of this proposal until my concerns are addressed. Thank you for your consideration, Justin Kritikos.
Mr. Jacques, you want to do a presentation now, please?
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. The land subject to this application is approximately a 9-acre parcel of land located at the south end of the community of Tilbury with frontage on Queen Street, as well as Middle Line in Essex County to the south. The report outlines two specific zoning bylaw amendments. Recommendation number 1 is an amendment in response to an application received by the developer or the property owner. This amendment seeks to reduce the interior side yard setback for the future townhome or row house dwellings from 3.5 meters to 1.5 meters. This is the distance between the side yard lot line and the side face of the outer unit of a townhome dwelling, as well to increase the maximum lot coverage of a row house dwelling from 33% to 55%. The nature of this amendment will result in the developer to build the desired style of housing over these lands for which they are already approved for townhome development. The second recommendation in the report is also a zoning bylaw amendment. This amendment is proposed by administration, and the nature of this amendment is to place the entirety of the subject property, which consists of plans for approximately 52 new dwelling units, into a holding zone. The holding zone classification will restrict any new housing development from occurring on these lands until such time that local issues related to stormwater management and flooding have been addressed. To address the flooding issues for this neighborhood involves the implementation of priority project number 2 identified in the Tilbury Stormwater Master Plan for the Homesteads Drive area. This process has initiated, and it could take 1 to 2 years to complete. The reason why administration is recommending the holding zone is that through the development of this subdivision by the private developer, the municipality also embarked on the environmental assessment to review flooding in the community of Tilbury. As these two processes were proceeding concurrently, it wasn't until later in the development process that the municipality had qualified and quantified the nature and extent of flooding in the community, as well as provided a priority list of 29 implementation projects to address flooding issues in the community over time. So through ongoing negotiations between the municipality and the developer, a portion of the subdivision in this area was given final approval, and approximately 30 homes can be built on Hawthorne Crescent. However, the remaining lands on Blackacre Crescent and Jemima Boulevard, which I've explained, would be in a holding zone until such time that the upgrades to the Rosalie Robert drain in Essex County, as well as the storm sewer network servicing the existing subdivision, can be upgraded and approved in accordance with the master plan. As council is aware, 2 written submissions were received. These generally related to the quality of restoration work by contractors working in the area, the health and safety of the activities going on site, the general site condition, the housing types and density of housing in the area, and the stormwater management facilities. Planning staff, as well as staff from other divisions, are online to address any specific councillor questions on these issues. And with that, Mr. Mayor, I will turn it back to yourself for council questions. Thank you.
Councillor Harrigan.
Thanks, Mayor Kenneth. I'd like to move the recommendations, and I have some questions.
Councillor Oche, can I get you second that, please?
No, I'm not in favor of that. Thank you.
Okay, can I get a seconder for that, please? Councillor B. McGregor.
I'll second that.
Okay, Councillor Harrigan.
Great, thank you, Mayor Kenneth. My first question is over to Minister Ryan Jacques. Ryan, can you just confirm my assumption here about that holding zone category? So given all of the concerns we have about flooding by the 2 deputations we received and also Tilbury more generally, the vast majority of this subject property, I think you said a handful of new builds, will be put in a holding pattern, which means no more work, no new housing will be developed until we implement the project that will improve Tilbury's stormwater situation. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. The neighbors should expect that continued home construction on Hawthorne Crescent, which is immediately south to the north leg of Homestead Drive, will continue. However, everything south of that will be placed into a holding zone where no new home construction would be able to occur until the holding was removed at the completion of that master plan project. That's correct.
Great, thank you. Just as I put in a plug for investing in infrastructure, I think this is a perfect example of how our underfunding of some of our infrastructure needs, particularly stormwater, which Mr. Kelly will remind us that is the most underfunded infrastructure category in the municipality, is now inhibiting development, right? We have 52 units that could be built that will not be built until we invest some serious dollars into that infrastructure project. So I'm glad to see it's number 2 on the recommendation list for the Tilbury Stormwater Project, which means it has a chance at completion. But currently we can now say that our infrastructure is holding us back from growth. So I think that's an important point to make. The next question I have, I believe, is directed to Mr. McFadden. Mr. McFadden, Mark, we've been in conversation of, it started some time ago, I think in the summer, with Mr. Jarrett, who did one of the deputations. I was under the assumption that the issues and concerns he had were cleaned up, but here we are 5 months later, and it seems that it is ongoing. So can you give a status update on any conversation you've had with the consultant or the developer? And then also maybe comment on how it is that we can, on an ongoing basis, ensure that our developers and their contractors are keeping our communities safe and clean looking for the residents who are currently living in those areas.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Yes, I can provide a quick update. I did speak with the consultant earlier today. They did assure me that the restoration work at I believe 5 and 7 Homestead should be completed within the next week. I provided you with a follow-up email on that. So if it isn't completed, then feel free to reach out to me, and I'll follow up once again. I was under the impression it was completed as well. As far as moving forward and trying to eliminate these issues, I think it's continued communication with the developers, ensuring that they're completing this work. When we get into some of these subdivisions where you're seeing these side yards that are existing residences, it's more critical to get onto the restoration as opposed to when we're dealing with the newer subdivision.
Great, thank you. And I imagine for residents who have concerns about, some of the things that were mentioned here, safety, debris, or even garbage that's left on construction sites, they can leverage our 311 or CK Info Services pathways to identify where the area is and what the issue is for staff to connect with the developers and the contractors.
That'd be correct. Depending on the developer or what stage it's at, it can be different departments within the municipality that are managing the contracts or the ongoing projects. For example, through the development of the site, engineering primarily deals with that. When we get into home construction, sometimes it may be public works or building department as well. So reaching out to customer service or 311 is definitely the best avenue.
Great, thank you. So I too am very hopeful that this site can get cleared before, in the coming weeks. I couldn't imagine a kid walking home with snow on the ground and they don't see something and they're stepping on, steel debris or some of that cabling. That's certainly a dangerous situation. Thank you. And again, I think that I appreciate staff recommendation with this holding category, because I do think it balances the development that we need with the recognition that our infrastructure is certainly not up to par to hold more homes in this area. That's all, Mayor Caniff.
Melanie, can I go to you? I suspect you might have some further answers to the questions that were asked.
Yes, through you. I've spoken with the applicant, and he has already tonight spoken with the contractor. They will be out this week to restore the boulevards, as well as take a look at the rest of the site and do whatever they can to clean up and wherever they need to either grade or remove debris. So it will be taken care of within the next 7 days. And if there is not, if it hasn't been, the applicant is willing to find another contractor to come out and take care of it. So it will be taken care of.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Oche, followed by Councillor Latimer.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Mr. Jacques. So right now, are you saying that with these new houses, the storm sewer that is there is able to support these new houses without doing any other work?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Caniff. I will rely on Mr. McFadden to provide more of a technical engineering answer to that question. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. So the Tilbury Stormwater Master Plan did identify this area as a deficient area within the community. The master plan solution is to improve the downstream sewer as well as the Rosalie Robert drain, and essentially that drain is going to become the stormwater management, I guess, if you want to call it. It doesn't mean that there's a stormwater pond that is required. The sewers are, whether we're talking about this community or any other community within the municipality, sewers are only designed for a specified storm. Some sewers in our municipality are designed for for 5-year storms. Some are older sewers and maybe 2-year or even 1-year events. It's when we get into the major events, that's where our right of way is conveying the water. So in this instance, what we did was we worked with our consultant for the Tilbury Stormwater Master Plan, and we looked at what number of lots we would be able to develop in this new phase without impacting private property. So what that means is that we can allow our right of way to flood and to store water until the sewers can convey it away, but we're trying to restrict it from encroaching onto private property. In this specific subdivision, when we get into speaking about basement flooding, that's really a bit of a different topic than stormwater management ponds and the capacity of the sewers. For example, you could have the sewers could be designed to handle a 5-year event, but if we get an event that is larger than that, and your basement is hooked up to that, then your sump pump has nowhere to pump the water. So even in the Tilbury Stormwater Master Plan, it really highlighted downspout disconnection and even sump pump disconnect, or at least sump pump overflow outlet. So what that means is that in a major event, when the sewers can't handle that flow, it pumps the water out to the side of your house instead of it hitting the backflow preventer or the check valve and flooding your basement.
Okay, through your worship. So what is that designed for? A 2-year storm, 5-year storm? Right now, please.
I believe the sewers in this area are in the range of a 2-year event. So any new development, we would typically size to a 5-year storm event, but there's plenty of sewers throughout the municipality that are only sized to a 2-year event.
Thank you. And I'm not sure if this would be to you as well, Mark, or to Ryan, but how come we're not showing the streets in the subject property there on the hold pattern? Because I know there's streets that were put in there without permits, and we don't even have them on the map now for some reason.
Thank you, Mayor Can. If it's Ryan Jocks, I can address that. Just in the practice of our day-to-day work and preparation of documents, we're relying on aerial photography from 2015. That's the latest that's currently available. So we're not showing the streets as they've been built since then. However, in the report presented to council in Appendix B, there are some recent photographs taken of the site, which do show the street network through the area. And I can quickly here, just for the benefit of the public and council, just for reference for this question, orient council with this map, the existing Homestead Drive, west and north, Hawthorne Crescent, south of the northern leg of Homestead. This is the street containing single detached homes, which currently some under construction. South of here, Blackacre Crescent, connecting again to the south leg of Homestead Drive, as well as Jeremiah Boulevard, which is a interconnecting street to Queen Street South. This area here, where the row houses are approved to be constructed in time, is also the area subject to the holding provision recommended in the report tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Could you also, Ryan, let me know, well, actually, I'd like you to go back to that other one if you could, the picture you just had up, please.
Yes.
Are the residents of Hawthorne Drive going to be able to use Blackacre to get out?
Thank you for the question. No, so this is this ongoing situation. So Hawthorne Crescent in the north, this is a fully registered plan of subdivision. So Hawthorne Crescent, the right of way, including the paved street, is an open and public roadway at this time. The streets to the south have not been registered on a finally approved plan of subdivision. So those roads remain constructed on private property. So in the interim, it is something that the municipality should be barricading those streets to prevent the public from traveling on roads which are not public roads and not maintained by the municipality. Thank you.
Thank you. And just my one last question, I guess, would be, and I'm not sure who this would actually go to, how long before the sewers will be put in that's actually needed along Queen Street?
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. The master plan solution for this development is actually a municipal drain project. It's not a new sewer along Queen Street. It actually, the existing sewer outlets at the northwest corner of this development and runs north to the Rosalie Robert drain. So it would be improving that entire section. It's not constructing a new sewer on Queen Street.
Oh, okay. So do you have a timeline?
So the Drainage Act process, I believe, in speaking with our manager of drainage services, they are assigning I believe the engineer at the drainage board tomorrow night. But I would suspect that will be likely a 2-year process before the improvements are completed.
Okay, thank you very much.
Nope. I see no other questions, so we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes 16-2. Moving on to 10B, application for zoning bylaw amendment and site plan control, 2743576 Ontario Inc., 320 Grand Ave East, Community of Chatham City. I have no conflict of interest on this matter. We have received one deputation and the agent is on the line. Pass it over to Ms. Hoffman for the deputation.
This particular deputation is by Les Wolf. I am the owner of the home hardware store under construction at 300 Grand Avenue East next to the subject property. I have reviewed the revised site plan for 320 Grand Avenue East and have no objections. However, I do strongly suggest that plans for future traffic lights at the intersection of Taylor Avenue and Grand Avenue be fast-tracked. The Esso gas station on the subject property is scheduled to open in December, and the home hardware is scheduled to open in March. Additionally, given the scope of the residential apartment project, there will be a significant amount of construction traffic. Both 300 and 320 Grand Avenue have their own street entrances and have also negotiated a permanent easement for shared use of a third entrance, shown on the plan, at the intersection of Taylor and Grand, where the future traffic lights are planned. This shared entrance with traffic light controls will provide a safer and smoother flow of traffic on both Grand Avenue and Taylor Avenue. Please consider moving up the planned installation date for traffic lights to safely manage traffic entering and exiting Grand Avenue from both this development and Taylor Avenue. Thank you, Les Wolf.
Mr. Jacques, you have a presentation?
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. The subject parcel here, located on the south side of Grand Avenue East, immediately opposite the intersection with Taylor Avenue, is currently approved in the zoning today for a 10-story residential apartment building containing 138 units. The municipality received an application from the owner of these lands to expand on the previous approvals by increasing the permitted residential density for this development. The proposal seeks to amend the zoning to permit a 13-story residential apartment building with 182 residential apartment units. The specific amendments being sought are an increase to the maximum building height from 33 to 46 meters, reducing the minimum off-street parking requirement from 1.25 to 1.2 spaces per dwelling unit. And thirdly, to increase the maximum permitted density from 141 units per hectare to 186 units per hectare. The submission received speaks very specifically to the municipality's prioritization of a new traffic signal at the intersection of Grand Avenue East, Taylor Avenue, and the main entrance to the subject property. As part of this application, the developer was required to prepare a traffic impact study. This looks at traffic generated from this site, as well as background traffic increases generated by development across the municipality as a whole, as it affects this general location on Grand Avenue. The results of that traffic impact study suggested that a new traffic signal immediately at the entrance to this property opposite Taylor Ave on Grand Avenue East is warranted in the future. A new traffic signal is the responsibility of the municipality to prioritize through its capital budget process. This January, council will receive the proposed 2022 capital budget in advance of its 2022 budget deliberations. This particular signal, being a capital item, will be included in a priority sequence for future years. It won't be prioritized for 2022, but the priority should give council and the public an indication of where it generally would sit. As far as the timing of this apartment, it would be a couple of years away before this apartment was fully constructed, completed, with people moved in, generating traffic. That's not to say in the meantime, traffic from the new Home Hardware and gas bar and car wash wouldn't be present, but the new traffic signal likely would come later at the opening of the apartment building in some future year. Thank you.
Councillor Crew, can I get you to move this, please?
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
I have some questions.
Certainly. Well, I was going to get the questions, just going to put it on the floor and then go through all the questions.
Move it, Mayor Caniff.
Councillor Kirkwood-Wright, would you like to second it?
Maybe.
Okay. Councillor Bondi, would you second that?
Yes, Mayor Caniff, I will. And I also have a question as well.
Okay. So Councillor Crew, did you have any questions?
Yes, I did. And it was based around that traffic signal, but I think it was answered with Ryan's presentation. So that I understand that the apartment units won't be up for a few years, and the traffic signals will be on the capital list, but a couple years out. So they should kind of coincide with what needs to happen. So I'm satisfied with that.
Okay, Councillor Bondi, followed by Councillor Kirkwood-White.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Ryan, I'm wondering, frankly, why would it take a couple of years to install a traffic light? Couldn't we fast track that? I'm very familiar with this location just because I live around the corner, kind of. And when I look at the size of the new Home Hardware, the gas station, which I think is going to have a Subway in it, it's already a relatively difficult area to negotiate vehicular-wise. And I have a feeling there's going to be an awful lot of pedestrian traffic just with the Subway and the hardware store. So is there any way that we could, speed up the traffic? Like, it doesn't seem like it's a very, considering the level of investment here, I think the traffic light would benefit everybody. And it is a municipal responsibility. I gather that. So Ryan, is there not a way that we could, just do this quickly? Because it seems like it'll be necessary before the apartment building, just with the Home Hardware. Because there was a request that I did forward on to some of you guys, I'm not sure who, but about this traffic signal due to the development, not of the apartment building, but of the hardware store and the gas station. So again, sorry to repeat myself 5 times, but Ryan, is there just a way that this could happen sooner than later, rather than going through, the budget process? Because it seems like it's a need. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Caniff. There is a capital budget priorities, ultimately council's decision. So in 2022, and it considers the capital projects, it will be in context with the many other capital priorities which are needed in 2022, and perhaps some projects that are already partially funded, which will require additional funding in 2022. But I believe that the deliberation on the timing of this is probably best left to that January council meeting when council debates the capital budget, when it can consider all of the municipal priorities on that list. Hope I've answered the question, but perhaps if there was anything to add, Mr. Quinton or Mr. Kelly, perhaps on the overall budgeting process, may wish to add something. I don't want to put them on the spot, but it's a bit out of my responsibility at the same time.
Yeah,
Well,
sorry, Councillor Bonnie, it's Thomas Kelly. What Ryan has described is exactly right. We will be coming to council in January with our capital list. You will see, unfortunately, that we don't have enough funds to do everything we would like to do. So we will prioritize this one on the list, and it'll be up to council to make the final decision. Thank you.
And through you, Mayor Kenneth, thank you, Thomas and Ryan. I appreciate that. So I think, understand that perhaps the traffic signal light may be a couple of years away to coincide with the opening of the apartment building. Now, if we have a situation where there is a bit of a traffic problem, congestion, because of the hardware store and the gas station, I understand it'll be prioritized for us to deliberate at budget this coming winter. Now, can you give us any indication as to where this may land as a priority? And I do understand there are many priorities, there's many needs across the entire municipality, but when something like this happens, does it jump the queue a bit just because the development is going to happen? Can you give us any indication on where it's going to be on? Well, I guess you can't, because you probably haven't done the whole budget thing yet.
And thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can say that actually we're working on the capital plan right now. It's not finished. So we will take this information and the dialogue we received tonight and prioritize accordingly. Thank you.
Great, and thank you, Mayor Caniff, and through you, Mayor Caniff, to Thomas. Thank you very much, and I hope this does make it kind of high on the priority list, because again, just because I'm very familiar with this area and with this new development, I think it should be pretty high on the priority list. Thank you very much.
Councillor Kirkwood-White, did you have anything to add? I don't see your hand. I wasn't sure whether you had anything.
Yes, I have a couple of comments, if you don't mind, Your Worship. And I want to preface my comments by saying that I would be one of the last individuals to downplay the need for housing in Chatham-Kent, but I have received some concerns relative to the increase in the number of stories in the apartment building, the increase in the number of units, the acquisition of parking off-site, and what has already been mentioned, the increase in the traffic flow, particularly the increased traffic flow at both Taylor and Memory Lane onto Grand. I think most of council knows that the Opportunity Villages Community Land Trust is hoping to establish a net zero small home development between Taylor Avenue and Memory Lane. And the entrance to the property will be at the end of Selkirk and Memory Lane there. I do want to indicate that I received a couple of calls. We did try to reach staff this afternoon. And the first concern has to do with the height of the building and whether there were or will be any shadow studies done on the development that could potentially impact the net zero that we're trying to do at the small home development. If somebody could answer that question, and then I have a couple of more questions and a couple more comments.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. With regard to the shadow study, I would like to put that question to Mr. French, who's on for the developer, to advise the nature of the study that it's been completed to date.
Thank you, Ryan, through to Councillor or Mayor Caniff and Councillor Kirkwood-White. I would actually like to defer to the architect on the project, Natalie Gervais, to provide an answer to that question.
Natalie, over to you.
Hi, Natalie here. We can definitely execute a shadow study if necessary.
Natalie, I'm just very concerned about, you know, the fact that in the winter time, when the sun angle is low, that this might not provide enough sunlight for the solar that we're hoping to establish on the property. And wondering whether that had been taken into consideration through the building and, sorry, through the planning department when this proposal was put forward.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. It's Ryan Jux here. I'd like to add to this. So with many of the apartment building proposals that have been received by council over the last couple of years, many have had a shadow impact analysis. Planning, myself, we did not require one for this project as part of this submission. And the reason for that was an acknowledgement of the setback from Grand Avenue that this building will maintain as proposed in the conceptual site plan. I reviewed shadow studies of other buildings and it concluded that the shadow impact here would not warrant a study, as it would not really cast a shadow that far north into the community, even in the winter time. But I acknowledge.
So you're not concerned, Ryan, that this will have an impact on that small home development that is being proposed for Taylor Ave?
Yeah, I do not believe that a shadow would be cast that far north at 10 Taylor. However, a study can be prepared, and it's something that I would believe the developer would oblige, so we could address that with factual information in the future. Yeah, my decision to not require it was simply based on the distance that this building is south of any other development north of Grand Avenue East.
Okay. The other concern that was expressed has to do with the clause in the report that talks about the 176 spaces that will be provided on the subject lands, with an additional 43 parking spaces to be provided at a proposed new parking lot at 277 Grand Avenue East. For those that don't know, the Alzheimer's Society of Chatham-Kent currently leases this land for the purpose of parking. This agency relies heavily on the parking lot for staff and visitor parking. And pre-COVID, it was not unusual to have 30 cars parked there, occupied by both staff and volunteers. And speaking with Mary Ellen Parker this afternoon, by way of a bit of background, the agency is a not-for-profit healthcare provider for all of Chatham-Kent. And this location houses an adult day program 6 days per week for 11 clients per day under normal circumstances. The adult day program provides physical and mental stimulation to maintain brain health, along with personal care, feeding assistance, medication assistance, and works with community partners to ensure clients receive the best care possible across all healthcare sectors. They also see numerous clients and care providers at this location to provide cognitive assessments, education, and referrals to other healthcare providers. And all of this is done with approximately 35 staff. It also involves external visitors to the site for care conferences and other health-related concerns to ensure the best care possible. I want to point out that this proposal did not reach the Alzheimer's Society. They were not aware of this eventuality. And they are also a signatory member of the Chatham-Kent Ontario Health Team. They depend very heavily on this parking lot for staff and for visitors. And their parking lot to the west of the building does not have anywhere near enough parking spaces to satisfy the need that they have. It also needs to be kept clear of cars for the drop off and pickup of their adult day program participants. And it should also be noted that they expect a significant increase in the number of people affected by Alzheimer's disease and related dementias as we all move through the baby boom population. They currently see about 700 clients and care partners, and that is expected to double by 2030. So if they were to lose this particular parking lot at 277 Grand Avenue, it would be very much limiting their accessibility required by both the staff and visitors. And I'm just really concerned that although the Opportunity Villages Community Land Trust Board received notification of this proposal, the Alzheimer's Society did not. And being right next door, I thought that they should have received notification. And there was nothing they could do about it, finding out about it this afternoon. So I'm asking why they would not have received notification.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. The notification was based on the lands subject to the zoning amendment, which is 320 Grand Avenue East and not 277, which is abutting the Alzheimer's Society property. The property at 277, where the satellite parking lot would be located, already permits a parking lot as a use. Therefore, a zoning bylaw amendment to redevelop a new parking lot at that location was not included in the notice. However, point taken regarding future notification efforts. Again, and just to comment back to your comments, Councillor, regarding the lease arrangement, that's not something that I was aware of. I am aware this property changed ownership. However, unfortunately, I was not aware of the existing relationship that existed between those two properties in the past.
Yeah, so thus the reason for the concern about the increased need for parking off-site. If the housing development apartment building were 10 stories, that would reduce the number of off-site parking that would be needed. So, speaking on behalf of, I'm very concerned as a member of the Board of Health that the Alzheimer's Society was not made aware of this, and it could have serious repercussions for that service that is so necessary in our community. I'm not sure what we can do about it, but it's concerning.
Thank you, Councillor. I see no other question. Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes 15-3. 10C, application for zoning bylaw amendment 209-1883 Ontario Inc. 20 to 34 Main Street West, Community of Ridgetown, East Kent. No conflict of interest, no deputations were received.
Councillor Wright and Councillor Pinsino, can I get you to move this, please?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll move it forward.
And I'll second it, Your Worship.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes 18-0. Moving on to 10D, application for zoning bylaw amendment. Michael Simon, 15306 Thompson Line, Community of Orford, East Kent. I have one conflict of interest with Councillor Wright. We've received 6 deputations and the agent is on the line. clerk's office will now read the 6 deputations received. The first one, Joel Springer. I strongly oppose the application for zoning bylaw amendment file D14 OR 6321S. In no way can this trucking company be allowed to continue to turn Duart into its own truck stop. They have been allowed to operate above the law for the past 6 years, and this nuisance of a business needs to be shut down. This is a residential neighborhood. Why has Mike Simon been allowed to operate a trucking company through agricultural loopholes in a little residential hamlet without any recourse? Where are the fines for this illegal business? They come and go at any time of day or night, every day, including weekends and holidays. They will idle all night long without any respect for the residents of Duart, and noise bylaws are not enforced by local police in any kind of timely manner, allowing for this illegal business to disturb the community at any time for as long as they want. They blast their air horns, and their backing alarms are a constant reminder of their presence. My whole house vibrates as they idle all night long, and every time they slowly lug their engines past my house. Whenever they use their incinerators, my house fills up with chemical fumes. They have a street light that is on every night, all night long, that emulates my whole yard. It is very stressful to continue to be subjected to this. Make no mistake, this is primarily a tractor trailer company operating through agricultural loopholes. There is no reprieve from this constant disruption. Please put a stop to Mike Simon and allow Duart to become a peaceful community as it once was. Has what he has been applying for been verified that it is actually what he does? As far as I can tell, his immediate neighbor, this is a fleet of tractor trailers that may be transporting agricultural products, but make no mistake, this is a trucking company operating through agricultural loopholes. He hasn't done his due diligence to operate a legal business up to this point. How can he be trusted that he ever will and be allowed to continue to operate at this location in any form? This is a really shady business with very dangerous and shady practices. Who will be accountable for letting this operation operate if someone is seriously injured due to Mike Simon's negligence? I'm not willing to take a chance on this guy. He needs to be shut down and fined. Imagine what it would be like if your neighbor operated a fleet of trucks out of their residence. Lastly, I will add that this process was initiated by me, not by Mike Simon or the municipality. Mike was quite content to continue to run his illegal business. This municipality now needs to step in and shut down this trucking company from operating in a small hamlet of Duart. Thank you for your time, Joel Springer.
The next deputation on this item is from Melanie Hildebrand. This is in regard to Mike Simon, resident of 15306 Thompson Line, Duart, a residential home with trucks operating out of part of Lot 5. I am opposed to illegal trucking running out of a residential home. The numerous reasons are endless. Noise pollution is just the beginning. Lack of sleep and insomnia due to 24/7 trucks moving in and out, smoke and chemical inducing migraines, idling motors, people loitering, beloved pets being run over and left as roadkill, disruption during holidays and weekends. I could go on. There are no rules or regulations. This guy just doesn't care. Please put a stop to this illegal activity. Best regards, Melanie Hildebrand.
The next deputation is by Trish Pedersen. I moved to this town a few years ago, and it is a quiet little hamlet. When my husband and I moved here, I had no idea that there was a trucking company in this town. I currently live right across the road from Mike Simon Trucking and have not been bothered by the daily activities that occur across the street or by the trucks leaving, since they all need to drive right past my home when leaving town. About a year ago, I was hired by Mike Simon Trucking to work in their office. I have now been employed by the company for just over a year, and not only is it convenient, but I also love my job. I save money by not having to pay for fuel, but also maintenance on my vehicle. This allows us to save money since my husband will be retiring soon. If the company were to move, it would be very detrimental to me. I would have to commute or try to find a new job depending on how far away the company had to move, and that could cause me to take a decrease in pay after I spent so much time and effort attending college to be able to have the skills to do my job now. It would also make it harder to pay off the loans from my schooling. My employment at Mike Simon Trucking also provides benefits which control my diabetes. I would really hate to see a local company have to shut its doors, especially when they are not being a nuisance to the community, but rather an asset. Sincerely, Trish Pedersen.
Next deputation is from Alan Bloomfield. This letter is in support of Mike Simon Trucking. I have been at Thompson's, the Andersons, and working with Mike Simon's company for 14 years now. His drivers are some of the best in the area. They are courteous and respectful of the property. I have absolutely no issues with his company or his drivers. As a resident of Dewart, Ontario, I can say that his drivers are very respectful of the community and do not use jake brakes in town, so noise is minimal. If I didn't know him as a neighbor, it may be hard to know his trucking business even exists in Dewart. His yard is always well maintained, and out of respect of his neighbors, the yard is well shielded with rows of neatly kept cedar bushes. The trucks do not sit idling for excessive long periods. In all, I believe that his company is well run and well respected throughout the area. If you have any questions, please contact me. Sincerely, Alan Bloomfield.
The next deputation on this item is from Dan and Judy McMillan. In regards to the Simon application for zoning bylaw amendment, we personally do not have any issues, so would like to lend our full support. The Simons are great neighbors and do their best to keep their drivers in check. The only suggestion we would make, as Mike and I talked about one day not too long ago, was to have the trucks enter Mike's yard from the Dewart Road to lessen some of the traffic at the main corner. Also, the Simons employ a number of people, which is great for our community. Regards, Dan and Judy McMillan.
And the last deputation is by Rose Guyot and David Wiley. It has come to our attention that there is a complaint going to council regarding the traffic on the short stretch of Thompson Line between Dewart Road and Tietzel Line. We have lived at this address for more than 20 years and in Dewart for many more years. There has always been farm and truck traffic in Dewart. Quite a few of the residents here make their living driving trucks and quite often have their rigs in town. Over the years, the truckers have been very considerate of their neighbors regarding both speed and noise. There has been a slight increase in traffic since the trucking company opened at the corner of Dewart Road and Tietzel Line. However, few vehicles pass our house in a day. This is still a very quiet stretch of road. Our house is close to the road, and we appreciate that the drivers from Mike Simon's trucking company drive slowly and steadily. Most of the other truckers passing our house drive like this as well. We live on a short piece of roadway with a stop sign at both ends, hardly a racetrack. It makes no sense for drivers to rev their engines and shift up too often or down noisily. The farm traffic is by far the noisiest and most noticeable. Tractors and wagons make far more noise than cars and trucks. We believe the owners of Mike Simon's Trucking Company have proven to be kind, considerate, and productive neighbors, a great asset to this community. Thank you, Rose Guyot and David Wiley.
Mr. Jacques, over to you.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. This presentation will be by our Manager of Development, Anthony Jass. Thanks, Anthony.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Mayor Caniff. For councillors who I have not formally met, as Ryan said, my name is Anthony Jass, and I'm the new Manager of Development with Planning Services. So the zoning bylaw, or a zoning bylaw amendment application, has been received for the property located at 15306 Thompson Line, which is approximately a 5.5 acre parcel located at the southeast corner of Dewart Road and Thompson Line in the community of Orford. The property contains a single dwelling and a large implement shed. The implement shed is utilized for repair and service of vehicles and farm equipment, including trucks, tractors, and combines. And there's a gravel parking area that is utilized by trucks that are used for the transportation of agricultural goods and products. All of these activities are primarily serve the local agricultural industry. However, they fall outside the scope of permitted uses in the agricultural zone. The zoning bylaw amendment application is to rezone the property to recognize this use through a site-specific zone to allow for its continuation. The use meets the definition of an agricultural supply establishment in the zoning bylaw, which falls under the category of an agricultural related use based on provincial and local land use policy, which is an appropriate use for lands designated agricultural, such as a subject property. The written submissions received on this application raise a couple of key points that have been taken into consideration by administration in providing a recommendation to council. It is acknowledged that the operations on this site may result in additional noise and traffic impact to the surrounding area, in particular, the community Stewart, which is adjacent to the subject property to the north. And it is also acknowledged that that these are common impacts to rural settlement areas throughout Chatham-Kent, where these rural communities exist and are intended to support their surrounding agricultural industries. At times may include additional noise, dust, traffic, and at times odor from these surrounding operations. However, overall, the proposal meets the objective of Chatham-Kent to support a healthy and viable agricultural industry in a manner consistent with policy considerations embedded in the official plan. And with that, the recommendation before council is for zoning bylaw amendment application file D14 OR 6321 to zone the subject lands known as 15306 Thompson Line and part of Lot 5 concession south of Middle Road in the community of Orford to a site-specific agricultural zone exception 1591 to add agricultural supply establishment as an additional permitted use be approved and the implementing law be adopted. And that's all I have. Thank you, Mayor Kenneth.
Okay. Councillor Pincinel and Councillor Latimer, can I get you move this, please?
Yes, your worship, I'll move that, and I got some comments. If I get a seconder.
Councillor Latimer?
So seconded.
Okay, Councillor Pincinel, the floor is yours.
Thank you, your worship. I had a good conversation today with Mr. Simon, and he has been in business since August 29th of 2004. This is not a new business. Contrary to the negative deputations, he has never had a workman's compensation claim. This deputation stated he was running a shady business, and that's not the case at all. His CVOR, which is the commercial vehicle grading, has an excellent rating. He has a licensed 310T truck and coach mechanic on full-time to maintain the equipment and keep it in its tip-top shape. All employees are trained in WHMIS, as well as harassment and workplace training. I talked to him about the complaint of idling. He said it did happen one night by a driver who couldn't get home. It was in the middle of the winter, but he recognized that this is a problem and he stopped. As the one deputation said, that he keeps his drivers in check. The complaint that he said the incinerator's burning and putting up chemicals, he called the fire department and they came and did not put the fire out because he met all of Chatham-Kent's requirements, and they just left. It was all being done properly. The complaint of a light seems to me unlikely anyway. There's a large tree row, cedars and pines, 25 feet or higher around the Simon property. And in between the complainant's property and the Simon property is a church. And on the complainant's property, there is a row of trees there as well. All the neighbors in the area are good with this operation with the exception of Joel Springer and Melanie, and I believe those are both the same household. Mr. Simon employs 14 employees and is a good neighbor. As you heard from the neighbors that live across the road and all around him, everybody says that he runs a nice, clean operation. I ask that you support this recommendation and not let a neighbor dispute, disrupt an operation that's been there since 2004 and employs 14 employees. Like, honestly, this guy is, he's a pillar in that community, or you'd have every neighbor complaining. And honestly, I believe it's the right thing to do. The reality is, when you live in a rural community, and I know myself, I live in Thamesville, you're going to hear tractors going by and V-boxes, especially this time of year. I personally own a repair shop right in the middle of a residential area, and I have no trouble with my neighbors. I respect them, they respect me, and it's the way it goes. And for, 17 years he's been there. It's not like this is new. The complainant has moved in after this business was started. And honestly, it's a neighbor dispute, and please support this recommendation and let these folks get on with their life. Thank you.
Seeing no other questions, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes 17-0. Moving on to 10E, application for consent, Digger Wright Excavating, Inc., 395 Colburn Street, Community of Chatham City. There is no conflict on this matter, and we have one deputation that I will read now. Dear Sirs, regarding application D10C 13221D, 395 Colburn Street, Community of Chatham City. The residential occupants and owners of 373 Colburn Street, Chatham, wish to express their concerns regarding the above noted application. Will there be a berm or a noise preventative buffer zone adjacent to the house at 373 Colburn Street? Will there be solid fencing separating the home from the proposed severance of parcel 1 and parcel 2? Has there been a noise study evaluation? Lastly, our house has been located at 373 Colburn Street for many decades, and the adjacent land recently was farmland. Thank you for your valued consideration, and the writer can be contacted. Yours truly, Brent Gibbons, 1813201, Ontario Limited.
Mr. Jacques, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Again, Mr. Jass will be presenting this one.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. An application for consent has been received for the property located at 395 Colborne Street, east of Sass Road in the community of Chatham City. This is a 20-acre, approximately 20 acres vacant parcel of land on the north side of Colborne Street that is currently farmed. The consent application is to create 5 new industrial lots from the subject lands. These lots will range in size from approximately 1.5 acres to 2 3/4 acres each, having frontage and a future access from Colborne Street. And the retained lot will be approximately 12 acres in area. We'll also retain access from Colborne Street. These are industrial land and are zoned as such. The expectation is for future industrial development over the resulting lots. The submission received on this application raised some concerns or awareness of potential impact that this proposal will have on surrounding lands. This area is established. There are a range of existing uses, including residential, as was stated. This proposal is solely for the creation of new industrial lots. Prior to any future development, there will be a requirement for a site plan process to be followed. And at that time, certain measures will be required to reduce impact on surrounding lands. Of course, these measures may include the suggestions made or identified in the submission. So certain studies or certain implementation of certain features on these lots, but this will also be dependent on the nature of the development being proposed at that time. So with that, the recommendation before council is for consent application file B 13221 to sever and convey 5 new lots for industrial development in part of lots 4 and 5 Concession 1 River Thames Survey in the community of Chatham, being parcel 1 through 5, as noted in the recommendation, be approved subject to the conditions noted in the Planning Services report dated October 21st, 2021. Thank you.
Councillor Finn and Councillor Bondy, you should move this, please.
I'd be happy to move that motion.
And seconded, Mr. Mayor.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll put it to vote.
waiting for one more, council.
Madam Clerk, that would be myself. I cannot
Okay.
vote. I'm a yes. Thank you.
Thank you. All votes are in and motion passes 18-0. 10F, application for consent, Crest River Estates Limited, 3725 Queens Line, Community of Tilbury, West Kent. We have no conflict of interest, no deputations, and the agent is on the line.
Councillor Harrigan and Councillor Oche, can I get you to move this, please?
I'll move it.
Okay, Councillor Oche, Councillor Harrigan, will you second that?
Yes, so seconded.
Okay, any questions? Seeing none, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in, motion passes 18-0. 10G, applications for consent and zoning bylaw amendment, Marlon and Bertha Weber, 21064 Erie Street South, Community of Wheatley, West Kent. There are no conflict of interest, there are no deputations, and the agent is on the line.
Councillor Oche and Councillor Harrigan, can I get you to move this, please?
So moved, Mayor Canada.
Okay, Councillor Harrigan, Councillor Oche, will you second that? You must be on mute, Councillor Oche. Councillor Sakachi, can I get you to second this, please?
Oh, there's Councillor Oche.
Sorry, I'm having a problem here, but yes, I'll definitely second.
All right, any questions? Seeing none, we'll put it to vote.
One more councillor, is that you, Councillor Sakachi?
Madam Clerk, I was able to vote this time.
Okay, we're still waiting for one councillor. There we go. Thank you. All votes are in. Motion passes 18-0. 10H, applications for consent and zoning bylaw amendment. Diane Gardner, 22668 Cooper Road, Community of Tilbury East, West Kent. No conflict of interest, no deputations, and the agent is not on the line.
Councillor Harrigan and Councillor Oche, can I get you to move this, please?
So moved, Mayor Canada.
And seconded.
All right, any questions? Seeing none, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes 18-0. And the last application for this evening, council, is item 10I, application for zoning bylaw amendment 2833992 Ontario Inc. and 2718177 Ontario Inc. Fairview Line, Community of Harwich, South Kent. Councillor Solomon has declared a conflict. We have 31 deputations this evening, and the agent is on the line. Council, 31 might frighten you, but the clerk's office has done their best to consolidate these, and we'll try to get through them as efficiently as possible. First of all, we have received 13 form letters, which are the exact same deputations. Therefore, I'll read the actual form letter, and then I'll just express the names that were written on all of those, and we won't have to read through all of them. As you are aware, on October 21st, 2020, we received correspondence about a notice to complete application and public meeting to consider the application for zoning bylaw amendment file D14 HA 58210. We are writing to outline our concerns regarding not only this amendment of a zoning change to the required front yard depths of 11 meters to 8 meters, but around the increase of density of homes from the original proposal of 33 lots to now 61 lots, the higher volume of traffic, the possibility of forced sewer hookup, the impact on property taxes, the SLE development, as well as the resale value to existing homes with the additional 61 homes not comparable in property size to the current existing homes of Linwood subdivision. In addition, we are also concerned with 1, the speed of traffic coming down East Lawn, 2, increased of traffic volume and noise pollution, 3, the disruption that streetlights would have on current existing subdivisions that does not have streetlights, and traffic leaving the subdivision would be shining their headlights into the property of some of the current existing homes. Our family has resided on Fairview Line for 10 years and chose to raise our family in a quiet neighborhood with country feel. And we are very unhappy that this is about to change and therefore are opposing the amendment as well as the additional homes for the original proposal of 33 homes in the current current 61 homes. We are requesting that the link for the Chatham-Kent meeting be scheduled be forwarded to us. Thank you for your consideration. And the following names are the ones who have submitted the form letters. Scott and Joanne Brackett from 104 Joplin Street, Matthew and Amy Osterpolick, Ann and Jason Heinhus at 19 Linwood Ave, Candace and Tony Shepinowski at 57 Cameron Ave, Doug and Donna Houle at 60 Linwood Ave, Jamie and Crystal Houle at 41 Glenmar Ave, Jessica Powell and Jordan Maynard, Larry Spearman from 9262 Fairview Line, Ron Denemy, 22842 East Lawn Road, Tanya Carruthers, Daniel and Amanda Perini at 50 Linwood Ave, Cindy Miles and Jerry Clark at 22897 East Lawn Road, and Greg and Allison Stickney at 9271 Fairview Line. Now, Council, we have a few deputations that are the form letter, but they've added a couple bullet points as additional matters that are personal to them. So the clerk's office will just read the additional bullet points from the form letter with their names. Audrey Chevalier at 85 Linwood Drive adds, addition to new homes is not comparable with the existing Linwood subdivision, and Linwood residents should know what is going on in their neighborhood. As taxpayers, we should have a say in what happens to our property in our beautiful and peaceful subdivision. From Brady and Kristen Birkin at 22894 East Lawn Road, they add, we become residents of the Linwood subdivision a couple of years back because we wanted to be part of a small rural community and be out of the city. When you drive out here, it is peaceful, quiet community that feels like you are out in your own little world. It is a quiet community with sprawling and unique lots. Revising the zoning to accommodate double the amount of homes in that small acreage would ruin the look and feel of the Linwood subdivision and the primary reason why all of the residents moved out here, which is to get away from the city feel. If this is any of the new subdivision in town, such as the Berkshires, Tuscany Trail, Prestantia, would you allow an amendment to double the number of homes in the middle of their subdivisions? Most of these subdivisions have home building criteria, which they have to follow to keep their subdivisions cohesive and universal. So why should our subdivision be treated any different? Matt and Nicole Solway add, we have many people who walk, run, ride bikes in the subdivisions and down East Lawn, which turns into Indian Creek Road. The extra traffic creates an increased safety concern, especially since there are no sidewalks or paved shoulders. There is no plan for a park for all the extra children who have to play on the road, especially in the areas of restricted lot size. The nostalgia of Linwood would be diminished. There are a few areas in Chatham now that are able to keep some history, intimacy, and country feel close to the city. Once you remove this feel, you can't get it back. I hope this wasn't all for the money to have the increased number of homes. If this is the case, it certainly is poor planning on the city. This could have been planned in a different part of our growing city that wasn't already established with certain identity and ambiance. Randy and Leanne Polowick, their additional comment is the road access, which is directly opposite our driveway, which was not in the original plans for the proposed CLE development. The new developers need to relocate the road access to a much safer and more accessible area to the proposed development.
And Evan Sini and Lisa Long have added the additional comments of additional traffic on Fairview and East Lawn Drive. Is it possible to have an exit to Communication Road as opposed to Cameron? It does not make sense to channel additional vehicles into that small neighborhood. Is there any green space being added? Above and beyond, what is Chatham-Kent doing to ensure the planting of trees and parks in areas of new construction? This subdivision should have had a park several years ago. At what point does Chatham-Kent step in to ensure this is taken into consideration? Our municipality is in need of more trees. A huge step, in my opinion, would be to enforce this within new homes being built. Don and Lewis Kelly from 65 Glenmar Ave have added concerns regarding safety of children and adults from higher volume of traffic on neighborhood streets with no sidewalks. Kingsley and Linda Caldwell have added the additional concerns of unnecessary increase of traffic within Linwood subdivision. Access from East Lawn onto the proposed SLE would deem to be much more feasible. This newly proposed development does not adhere to Linwood subdivision bylaws. For example, the minimum 100-foot lot frontage for all properties. Since this proposed development does not adhere to the above referenced bylaws, this would result in a negative impact on the financial value of all existing Linwood Homes subdivision properties. This existing landscape of Linwood subdivision instills a pride of ownership for all, whereby this proposed development presents a threat to our current status of ownership. For all of the above concerns, this proposed development should not be affiliated with Linwood subdivision, thus should not be named South Linwood Estates. And we have from Kim and Dawn Pigeon. This unique, well sought after location, and anyone who drives through can understand why. It's simply peaceful and well landscaped with well matured trees. The residents' families are like family here, very respectable and professional residents. We have a solid connection. We respect the land and nature. To change the lot sizes and squeeze in as many homes as you can is far from what Linwood subdivision stands for. Call it what you may, but when this development, it will not be considered a part of Linwood. Linwood has a reputation. What you are proposing is expansion of homes on property that is directly behind us. That is all. While we understand that squeezing more lots in equals more potential profit, but when profit supersedes the concern of longtime generation of residents, it becomes our concern because you are changing what Linwood subdivision has stood for 60 years. It jeopardizes the appeal and uniqueness of this area. We are also aware that the initial proposal in 2006 for 33 homes in 2 phases was approved. This was shared amongst some of the residents of Fairview Line. However, in 2007, there was a new proposal for 61 homes, which was turned down by the City Council. Then in May 2008, the same proposal was then negotiated with the Ontario Municipal Board and approved. Our main concern was why this was not communicated and shared among the residents of Linwood subdivision, not just those residing along said land. I'm not clear on the statute of limitations for this. Why were the residents not informed of the amended change from 33 homes to 61 homes in 2008? This information was shared and brought forth at our November 5th, 2021 outdoor meeting with councillors on Cameron Street. While the councillors were unaware that the residents were not notified, one of the Fairview residents held the minutes for the final meeting, which supported that it was not agreed to, not to notify any of the residents of the change from 33 to 61 homes in 2008 through the OMB. We understand that many residents have been waiting for some council members to hold meetings to answer questions. In addition, we are also concerned with the speed of traffic down East Lawn, increased noise pollution, the disruption that streetlights would have on current existing subdivisions that do not have streetlights, heavy traffic. The new subdivision would be shining their headlights into the property of some of the currently existing homes. We have many people who walk, run, ride bikes in the subdivision and down East Lawn, which turns into Indian Creek Road. The extra traffic creates an increased safety concern, especially since there are no sidewalks or paved shoulders. There is no plan for a park for all the extra children who will have to play on the road, especially in the area of restricted lot sizes. The nostalgia of Linwood will be diminished. There are a few areas in Chatham now that are able to keep some history, intimacy, and a quiet country feel close to the city. Most lots are rather unique, of a half to 1 acre lots. Most of these issues were brought forth as genuine concern with the dozens of concerned Linwood subdivision residents at the November 5th, 2021 outdoor meeting on Cameron Street. We also have not received up-to-date information on the estimated cost of sewers being added should residents of the existing Linwood subdivision be asked to pay for sewers. And that's the end of the additional comments.
And just a few more to go. This particular one is from Travis Van Middelkoop from 9274 Fairview line. The additional comments are, I am concerned with speed of traffic coming down East Lawn, increase of noise pollution, the disruption that streetlights would have on an existing subdivision that does not currently have any. Traffic leaving the new subdivision would be shining their headlights into the properties of some of the existing homes. This neighborhood does not have a park, therefore many people, including the children, use the quiet streets for walks, bike rides, rollerblades, etc. With the addition of 61 new homes without any parks or anywhere for kids to play, I worry about the safety of the pedestrians, children especially, from the huge increase of traffic. The next one is from Ken Poirier, 31 Joplin Street. The additional comments are speed of traffic down East Lawn, increase of noise pollution, the disruption that streetlights would have on a current existing subdivision, a congestion and clutter, a significant increase in people and properties may witness a rise in vandalism, burglaries, and other crimes, the loss of a better sense of community that currently strives in the Linwood subdivision. And the final one is from Heather Kavanaugh. The additional comments are additional light and noise pollution caused by the addition of 61 homes, the distinct inevitability of increased traffic on Linwood Ave, causing significant safety concerns surrounding the numerous families with small children that utilize this quiet street, Avenue Drive, a neighborhood for recreational purposes and family walks. And then this one was not one of the remaining form letters. It's an original letter. And it is written by Mark Winter of 57 Joplin Street. I am writing to express my thoughts about how the construction of the proposed 61 new homes in the South Linwood Estates subdivision was seemingly snuck under the noses of those residents of the current Linwood subdivision, comprised of approximately 125 existing homes. My wife and I have lived in Linwood since 2013 and were two of the many current Linwood residents who attended an outdoor meeting at 9 a.m. on Friday, November 5th with you, Councillors Latimer and Thompson, and a couple of other staff whose names I could not hear at the beginning of the meeting. Thank you to Mary Claire Latimer for arranging the outdoor meeting last Friday and to the staff who attended. Thank you to Ryan Jocks for taking the time to very adequately explain how the planned development was first given draft plan of subdivision and zoning approval in May of 2008, and not in the very recent past, as many of us originally thought. You went on to explain how the then current developers owners of the subject property made an appeal to the OMB and won, following what I understand was a lengthy and heated exchange process initiated by the Linwood Ratepayers Association. It is my understanding that the confrontation had to do with a number of issues and that two of the main items of concern were, one, the potential cost to each of the existing Linwood residents to be forced to hook into the city sewer system in order for the South Linwood Estate subdivision to be built, and two, the potential for the construction of smaller homes on smaller lots and a higher density of housing to be built in and around the existing Linwood subdivision and the effect that would have on current property values for the existing homeowners. As you heard during the outdoor meeting last Friday, this came to the surprise of most of the current residents who were in attendance, ourselves included, who were clearly of the understanding that the subject property was still currently zoned for 33 or 36 half-acre lots in keeping with the existing Linwood subdivision and not the 61 much smaller lots. I acknowledge that some of the second concern above may also have involved another piece of land on the west side of East Lawn Road and another developer. I am unsure as to if or when the two developments were being considered at the same time. Frankly, I do not understand why there seems to have been secrecy involved in making it clear to all the existing Linwood homeowners that the 2008 OMB appeal decision favored the land developers and owners. I refer to what was purported to be a city letter dated on or about May 2008 that one homeowner had in his possession last Friday, stating that notice need not be provided to members of the Linwood ratepayers. Further, it seems very odd that the signage visible to Fairview Lime at the Trilby Avenue entrance into the proposed South Linwood Estates property continued to show half-acre lots for sale on the subject property up to this day, or perhaps up to last Friday. My takeaway from today's outdoor meeting is that the 61-lot South Linwood Estates subdivision is about to happen with or without the blessing of the existing Linwood ratepayers. My concerns echo those same concerns expressed by our existing neighbors who were also writing about maintaining the uniqueness of the Linwood area. Number one, the fact that the notice about the proposed zoning bylaw amendment to reduce the front yard depth from 11 meters to 8 meters to allow for a larger building envelope for each future lot was only sent on October 21st, 2021 to only those few residents whose houses and lots are directly touched by the subject property. This was only 3 weeks prior to the November 15th, 2021 date for council to hear and to vote on the proposed amendment. Thankfully, some of the original recipients of the October 12th, 21 notice decided to share the notice with other members of the Linwood subdivision whose properties are not directly touched by the subject property. I understand that this is the only notice that is required under the current bylaw, but I cannot help but wonder if the same lack of disclosure to the Linwood residents is still in place following the May 2008 draft plan of subdivision and zoning approval, especially knowing that a decision may have been made at approximately that time to deliberately not inform the Linwood ratepayers about the OMB's decision and recommendation to approving the changes. I acknowledge that it was made known that none of the city participants in Friday's outdoor meeting were either in office or in a position of influence in this regard, and that it was the previous administration and/or council that made the decisions about deciding not to provide notice to the Linwood ratepayers. It seemed to me to be an odd statement to make, as it sounded a little like it was an easy way to sweep a past mistake under the carpet. I can only hope that it might instill some effort to correct a wrong instead of having fallen on deaf ears. I request that I be added to a list of residents who can be contacted about future goings-on that involve the Linwood subdivision. I will also look into reawakening the Linwood Ratepayers Association, as you, Ryan, noted that it would be simpler to deal with an entity than individuals. Number two, an interesting point was raised at last Friday's outdoor meeting by one of the current residents who is an electrician. He stated that it is his understanding that building lots cannot be located within 200 feet of hydro towers and power lines. I would be most interested in knowing whether this is a true fact and whether it may affect the plans of the South Linwood Estates project. Number three, increased traffic is a large concern. Assuming that most householders may own 2 vehicles, it adds an additional 122 vehicles entering and exiting through 2 short street connections to Fairview Line and Cameron Ave. Most of this traffic will undoubtedly use East Lawn Road as their main route in and out of the subdivision. As you heard, those who live on East Lawn Road were and are most concerned about the potential for a higher volume of traffic in what some drivers believe is a high-speed shortcut from Communication Road to Park Ave. And the increased danger to pedestrians, I expect that traffic will also increase on all of the existing streets within the area. Might this lead to the need for a traffic light and additional taxes in the not too distant future? Number four, we enjoy the tranquility which is afforded to us as owners in Linwood. This is not a pretentious neighborhood. It is friendly and quiet and a pleasant place to call home. Our subdivision has 6 streets. We walk our dogs down the middle of our 4 of the 6 streets, and children ride their bikes freely throughout those same 4 streets. Our approximately 125 houses were built mostly in the past 50 to 60 years and include small bungalows, medium-sized houses, and large 2-story homes. And while we are not naive, we have all hoped and expected that this tranquility would continue with its large building lots to match the existing half-acre to 1-acre lots that we enjoy, and the relative privacy that accompanies this luxury. We back onto farmland to the west, north, east, and south of our Linwood subdivision. We recognize that adjacent farmers and/or local adjacent landowners might choose to sell at some point in time, but we'd like to think that a local owner or developer might be interested in keeping with the existing flavor of the Linwood area, and the council would support owners in this area. We are surprised and sickened, however, by how the out-of-town developers, land buyers are grabbing up prime land all over southwestern Ontario and wanting to cram more and more people into smaller areas, seemingly without regard to the homeowners who have already established themselves in those areas. We also know that cities and communities are being pushed to develop more and more affordable housing, but we do not subscribe to the belief that it must come at the expense of every existing homeowner without regard to that same tranquility and privacy and land value that we enjoy here. Ask any of the existing owners in Linwood why they bought here. There is an understanding that comes with being here. For most of us, this is the reason why we chose to live in Linwood. While it was stated, guaranteed, at Friday's meeting that none of the existing homeowners in Linwood will be forced to pay many tens of thousands of dollars to tie into a sewer system in response to the construction of South Linwood Estates, it begs the question regarding further development beyond the South Linwood Estates project. As noted, we have many additional acres of farmland immediately surrounding Linwood that we fear may soon become available to out-of-town and local opportunistic landowners who are anxious to cash in on even more opportunity to play the system for their own benefit, brought on by the current crisis with goofy land and house prices, low interest rates, and the current subsequent push for municipalities to strive for more affordable housing in their efforts to attract buyers and tax dollars. We fear those changes will come with increased taxes and the potential to face mandatory expensive tie-ins to a municipal sewer system. I fear that only those who are moving to CK from larger cities will benefit by Chatham's lower than most house prices, leaving existing Chathamites out of the homeowner market anyway. I do not mean for my thoughts to be taken in a condescending way. This is Chatham-Kent, described by many as a diamond in the rough, whose time has come, where I think the council still looks out for the betterment of all of its residents while moving the direction of CK 2035. I only ask that every decision is made with all of the factors having been considered, not the least of which is addressing concerns of the current residents of the city who will be impacted by those decisions. Thank you. I remain Mark Winter. There are two more deputations on this subject, Council. One is by Pat Paquette. I am writing to voice my opposition to the proposed amendment of a zoning change to the required front yard depth from 11 meters to 8 meters. I oppose not only this amendment, but the extra lots planned for the area. It was originally proposed as 33 lots, which now has been increased to 61 lots. This increase will impact resale values, the amount of and noise of traffic in the area, which has been until now a quiet subdivision. I foresee problems at the Park Ave corner with the increase of vehicles entering and exiting the subdivision. I do not want to see traffic lights or street lights coming to the area. We pay a great amount of taxes in the area to maintain our quiet surroundings. I am not sure what we can do about this, but as I start, I am opposing the bylaw change. My hope is you can help us in some way. I am requesting the link to attend the Chatham-Kent electronic council meeting scheduled for November 15th to be forwarded to this address, as well as a written notification of the decision of the Corporation of the Municipality of Chatham-Kent on the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. Thank you, Patricia Paquette. And the final one that I will be reading for you is from Lizzie Gooch. Our concerns include all of the ones on an already existing list, plus most of the residents here paid for municipal water to be put into Linwood. Would or should we get some rebate for that if and when housing comes in? The other concern is about sewers going in when we are all on septic systems. The cost will be too much per household. Also, we already have traffic on Fairview line and it will only increase. With so many options to build elsewhere, why pick on this small area? Instead, why not build a small community park, as more and more residents moving in are young families and the community park would be an asset. A very concerned homeowner at Fairview line, Lizzie Gooch.
Council, the next deputation is from Denise Plaquette and Kenneth Bovin, 9281 Fairview line. Opposition, reasons, rural, not city. too close to hydro wires, no sanitary sewers, no sidewalks, no street lights, no 61 plus cars going in and out of these houses, no increase to taxes. We pay too much now. We like the country atmosphere. We already pay for the diversion channels for years. We don't want more hydro expenses, noise pollution, or traffic pollution. We lived in town. That's why we moved here, because of the city thieves and noise. We pay too much for garbage pickup now, approximately $1,000 per year. This is a form of discrimination due to the cost of thousands of dollars to buy a computer just to stand up for myself and to be counted on in a meeting. We don't want to accommodate the developers. We love our small community. And the last one that I have, and we'll pass it back to Meredith, is from Bill Komisky, 59 Glenmar Ave, to whom it may concern. To begin with, we want to go on record to oppose the proposed changes to the development of the land known as South Linwood Meadows. In addition, we are opposed to the possible forced connection to sanitary sewer lines in the Linwood subdivision. It has recently come to light that development will soon begin in the area known as South Linwood Meadows. It is our understanding that the developer went to the OMB, Ontario Municipal Board, in approximately 2008 to appeal the decision made by the Chatham-Kent Municipal Council to limit the number of lots at approximately 33 in total. The OMB overturned the decision made by council granting the developer permission to increase the number of lots on site from 33 lots to 61 lots. As the decision was made back in 2008, the decision is now final, and the residents of Linwood subdivision cannot ask the OMB to reconsider the decision. It appears that the municipality failed the residents of Linwood subdivision by either not representing us at the OMB hearing or by not requesting a reconsideration of the board's decision. The municipality also failed the residents of Linwood subdivision by not informing us of the hearing and the subsequent decision. I would like to know why the municipality did not represent the residents of Linwood subdivision at the OMB and who made this decision. I would like to know why the information concerning the hearing was not forwarded to the residents of the Linwood subdivision, and also who made the decision not to pass on the information. I would like to know how the municipality will compensate the residents of Linwood subdivision for failure to represent us at the OMB hearing. Linwood has been a quiet subdivision just outside of city limits of Chatham. The lots are larger with ample space between homes and room for children to safely play. There are no street lights which enable us to enjoy night skies and unimpeded by light pollution. Since Linwood is outside of Chatham, there is virtually no traffic as we do not have the bus service, and the most of the traffic comes from those who live in the neighborhood. Cramming 61 houses into a parcel of land will drastically change the uniqueness of Linwood and more than double the traffic coming in and out of the subdivision. As we no longer have the right to oppose the number of lots to be developed, we should have the right to help determine what the lot and houses look like. To help in maintaining some of the uniqueness of Linwood subdivision, we ask that council maintain the front yard depth at 11 meters. We also ask that council to provide a plan to control the flow of traffic so there is minimal impact on the subdivision. In addition, we would like streetlights kept to a minimum and not shining into the rest of the subdivision. If the streetlights can be avoided completely, the uniqueness of Linwood would better achieved. With regards to this, both the storm and sanitary sewers, we are opposed to them because of the cost that we would incur, as well as the increase in property taxes. We believe that all costs associated with the sewers that are to be included with the development of Linwood Meadows should rest squarely upon shoulders of the developer. The only reason for the development of the parcel of land is so the developer can make a profit. And as such, the developer should pay the full cost of the pumping station and piping requirements to connect the main sewage line from these profits. The developer under no circumstances should make a profit at the expense of the residents of Linwood subdivision. After amalgamation, property taxes in Linwood jumped dramatically. We are currently paying a fringe tax because we are on the outskirts of Chatham, a tax for which we receive nothing in return. Once the sewers are installed, our property taxes will increase again. We pay enough for property taxes, we don't need to pay any more. If the municipality will not assign full cost of the sewers to the developer, then the municipality could consider these costs as compensation for failing to represent the residents of Linwood subdivision at the 2007 OMB hearing. In the Linwood subdivision, we never had a choice when amalgamation was forced upon us in 1998 by the Mike Harris government. With this in mind, we request that the residents of Linwood subdivision have a say in the development of the parcel of land. We are also requesting that the municipal council reject any proposed changes to the South Linwood Meadows. We further request, if any development takes place on this parcel of land, that it truly reflects the uniqueness of the Linwood subdivision. Please note, we want to keep appraised of any future developments in the Linwood subdivision area. Respectfully, Bill Komisky, 59 Glenmar Ave.
And I have the final two deputations. This one is from Frank Seisel. My name is Frank Seisel, resident at 80 Linwood Drive in Chatham since 1961. I am giving notice of my opposition to this application for the following reasons. Linwood subdivision and surrounding East Lawn Drive and Fairview line contain approximately 100 residential homes, with Linwood residents originally setting up under registered plan 509 and the others following suit. Each home sits on approximately half an acre, and the proposed subdivision sits right in the middle of the current homes. The original proposal consisted of 30 homes, but now seems to have grown to 60 new homes on about a quarter acre each. This will completely destroy the essence of this suburban residential complex from one of the quiet estates to a mishmash of homes and properties. As well, the proposal to include an additional access outlet to Cameron Ave will cause not only East Lawn Drive to become a speedway, but will undoubtedly turn Linwood Drive into one as well, since the new residents will likely favor the new shortcut. Since there are no sidewalks on either East Lawn, Linwood, Glenmar, Joplin, Cameron, or Fairview, residents and their children use the roads for walks, bike rides, dog walking, or many other exercises. Having these roads become access streets will make them much more hazardous, especially for children, and noisier for all. We can foresee that almost all the new residents will take the East Lawn or Linwood to Cameron to the new subdivision as an easier, quicker way to get home, thus destroying our quiet, peaceful neighborhood. With the addition of these 60 new homes, this will mean that over 150 homes, many with 2 cars, will be entering the area from Park Avenue East. And with the current speed limit of 80 kilometers at the Park Ave exit, this will certainly become more congested. The speed limit now makes it difficult to enter Park Ave. Since the speed limit changes from 50 kilometers to 80 kilometers at the diversion channel and goes to the stoplights at Communication Road, this means that in 1 kilometer of road, traffic is speeding up or slowing down for the lights, not only being very noisy, but in this short distance, it is very hard to judge when it is safe to enter Park Ave. As well, all of us current residents have been on a septic tank system because we have such large lots. We have been here over 60 years and our systems work perfectly, as do everyone we have spoken to from time to time. The new houses, with 60 of them in the half-size lots, will probably involve sewage lines, and we will be forced to join in a very large, expensive change to our plumbing and septic system. Also, we now have problems with ATVs running wild on some of the streets, especially on weekends, as a suburban residential designation. We cannot enjoy the same restrictions as they do in the city. After all, are we not part of Chatham-Kent? In summary, I, along with almost all the current residents, feel that not only is this amendment should not be allowed, but the original 30-unit proposal should be reinstated. Yours truly, Frank Seisel. And the last deputation is from Karen Ellis from 15 Joplin. As a resident residing at the corner of Joplin and Cameron Streets, I'm very concerned about the proposal to set the setback changes and number of lots doubling in the developing area. The fact that the lots will not be the same as the existing subdivision will have a definite effect on property values, traffic, and taxes to the current residents in this area. As a retired resident, I am also concerned about being forced into having to pay for sewers, as this would be a big change to our already hefty property taxes. Please consider the impact this development will have on our current subdivision. Karen Ellis. And that's all we have for deputations.
Mr. Jacques, over to you.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. For this particular application, I'd like to just preview what I'm suggesting a good process would be to fairly deal with this application in fairness to both the applicant and the public as well, the neighbors. I'll make a short presentation, mainly commenting on some of the background information that's already included in the planning report. After that, I think it would be appropriate that the applicant through their agent then present a prepared presentation that they have so that all of the information that can be available to council prior to its deliberation is made available. Then following, questions to administration and the applicant, and that could likely, we have all the time that council wishes to take in addressing some of these questions. In preparing for this meeting, I've made an assumption that each and every issue raised by neighbors through the written submissions are not necessarily going to be dealt with. If that's the case, it's important for me to point out now that the regulations under the Planning Act require that council, in giving notice of a decision for a zoning bylaw amendment, outline the issues raised, that they were considered, and how they impacted the decision. So in my view, it's unlikely that each and every one of those questions will get answered. So so there's no guessing on where this ends tonight. One of the alternatives, which may need to be taken if a decision on the amendment is not made, is to put a motion that the statutory public meeting, which is occurring now for this application, continue on February 14th, 2022. And at that meeting, or for that meeting, public notice be given. And I'll add that it be given to all of the property owners in the neighborhood surrounding this property. Secondly, that at that meeting, a subsequent report from administration include comments for council's consideration and for public viewing on all of the submissions received prior to today's meeting. And as well, that the notice contain the comments to be included in that report so that the public is informed at the notice stage of the information being presented to council on February 22nd. Just jumping back to questions to administration, I also want to acknowledge there are a number of municipal staff from the Corporation and the Public Utilities Commission on the line tonight. Public Utilities Commission, Public Works, Building Development Services, Traffic and Engineering, Drainage, and Planning. So a number of staff are prepared to take any number of questions on this proposal. So point out now that the application before council is submitted by the property owner is very minimal in scope. It is to reduce the required front yard setback of the future lots to be located in this area from the current 11 meters as set out in the zoning bylaw to 8 meters. This is the distance from the front property line to the front face of a dwelling. Even in a reduced setback, the zoning amendment still requires a maximum lot coverage of 30% of the lot. That's not proposed to be changed. In essence, the zoning amendment would allow a larger housing style to be built on the property, as well as provide the opportunity to provide a larger private rear yard area on each lot for eventual homeowners in this area. So for the benefit of those who've not seen the report or attended the neighborhood meeting a week ago last Friday, this property had been designated for development back through to the Township of Harwich official plan. Previous owners had been pursuing a development of this property since the late 1980s. By 2005, conditions of the day compelled the previous owner to submit an initial application for draft plan of subdivision and zoning bylaw amendment for approval. The application was first considered by Municipal Council on December 11th, 2006. The nature of the subdivision at that time was a 36 lot subdivision to be developed in 2 phases. The first phase was to be built out on private septic systems. The second phase was to be built out with an extension of municipal sanitary sewers, at which case also the original phase 1 would be required to connect to that sewer system. During the council deliberation in December of 2006, council deferred the application to a future meeting and directed the Public Utilities Commission to analyze the feasibility of extending municipal sanitary sewers to this area for the proposed phase 2. Several months later, on April 16th, 2007, council received a report from the Public Utilities Commission as requested regarding sanitary sewers. The conclusion was that it was feasible to extend sanitary sewers to this area. In the meantime, in the months in between meetings, the developer also modified the application in changing the proposed subdivision plan from 36 lots to 61 lots. At the conclusion of that April 16th, 2007 meeting, Municipal Council of the day refused the applications. In response to the refusal, the owner exercised the right to appeal Council's decision to the Ontario Municipal Board, which is a provincial tribunal to hear disputes over land use planning matters of municipalities. During the OMB proceedings, there was a settlement reached with regard to a servicing agreement, which is essentially a contract between the municipality and landowners benefiting from the extension of sanitary sewers, being the applicant. As well, the Ontario Municipal Board at the conclusion of that negotiation approved, which is their right at that provincial tribunal level to approve the subdivision at 61 lots and the implementing zoning bylaw amendment as well. So since 2008, the status of that approval has not changed. So the zoning is in place. The subdivision approval with relevant draft conditions is still in place. Earlier this year, the current owner purchased the property, understanding that the zoning and servicing agreement as well as draft plan approval were in place. That being a representation of the municipality's commitment to support this development. The public notice was provided based on the zoning amendment, and that's resulted in quite a number of neighbor letters as well as different conversations and emails and site meetings, et cetera since. I think that's a good setup at this point, Mr. Mayor. I think rather than me try to prioritize all of the issues in any type of priority sequence or significance, I leave that to you and to council, and administration is prepared to address any questions. Thank you.
Ryan, you mentioned that the developer had a presentation. Maybe this is a good time for that as well.
Correct, I did. Thank you, Mayor. Madam Clerk, I will stop sharing and Tracy will share. Thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor and members of council, I believe you can see my presentation on the screen.
Yes, we can, Tracy.
Thank you for confirming. So thank you for this opportunity. My name is Tracy Pionavax. I'm the planner for the applicant and a resident of Chatham. Just to highlight again, the subject property is located in the south portion of the city area off of Communication Road. The design is accessing from the existing built-up area onto an existing property, there's an internal roadway proposed, and the roadways will have their own unique names. What I want to offer in my presentation is just more specific details of the
So
development.
Tracy, sorry, can I interrupt? Do you have headphones to put on? Your voice isn't coming across very well, and we're having a hard time hearing you.
Yes. Let me do that now. Is this a little bit better?
Okay, go ahead for a minute. Well, hopefully that'll be better.
Okay, so I will also speak up a little bit more. So the residential development is 61 lots, and it was approved by the Ontario Municipal Board in 2008. It's proposed to have single detached dwellings. The design will include 1,500 square foot to 2,000 square foot ranch, raised ranch, or two-story homes. There'll be 50% brick or stone and 50% siding. Each unit will have paved driveways and their own garages. There will be that new internal roadway and sidewalks. They'll all be on full municipal services provided by the development. This overall provides an infilling opportunity in an existing built-up area. And the target would be spring of 2022 for the start of development. So the zoning that's being requested is the rural residential. Relief is to change just the required front yard depth minimum from 11 meters to 8 meters. This will allow for a larger home, but not any larger than it would have been previously without the setback. It's just moving the houses closer to the road will allow for a larger amenity space and a larger backyard, and taking advantage of the full 30% lot coverage. That essentially will create about a 400 to 500 square foot building envelope per lot. Homes will have those larger rear yards and larger amenity spaces. This will provide for flexibility for some home designs, moving from a 2-bedroom versus a 4-bedroom home. And again, all of those other requirements in the zoning bylaw will be maintained, including maximum lot coverage. So what I've done is I've illustrated what a sample unit would look like before the relief, which would be pushed back and with a smaller amenity area. And then the second image is a sample of what the relief would look like after the relief is approved. Again, bringing the building closer to the street and allowing for a greater backyard. Here's another example of where if this is a two-story, 2-bedroom unit, and with the relief, by moving it closer to the road, a larger backyard, we'd be able to do a 2-story, 4-bedroom unit. So with respect to some of the public comments, the first item about resale property value taxes, those are very common comments that we do get during development. There was some concerns about negative impact, but often new development can actually increase property values and increase the resale of homes. With respect to noise, traffic, and lights, noise and traffic studies have been completed, and they will be part of the condition of draft plan subdivision. They're not required as part of the zoning bylaw amendment application, but there will be no negative impacts anticipated, as there is a local network of roads that's designed for this type of development. For services and the cost of sewers, the development proposed will be on full municipal services. Servicing studies have been completed, again, as part of the draft of the plan of subdivision, and no negative impacts are anticipated. With respect to the hydro corridor, permits will be obtained from Hydro One. So I'm happy to answer any particular questions that council might have as well.
Okay, I'll go to the questions. I'll start with Councillor Latimer, then Councillor Thompson.
Thank you through the mayor. First of all, I'd like to say extend an appreciation to Ryan and Nora for coming out last Friday, November the 5th, to meet with the residents in Linwood. It's very much appreciated. I have a few questions. I'm very happy to hear that the applicant is on, and thank you for your presentation too this evening, Tracy. But I'll start, there are additional questions on top of what the concerns that were related through the letters that the residents sent in. And some of that, both Ryan and Tracy have already answered, but I feel throughout tonight we'll get more of them answered. The first one is for Ryan. Linwood residents tell me there were once strict development building bylaws for Linwood. Example, the homes were to be bricked and have 100-foot front setbacks. Who enacted and enforced those bylaw restrictions, and when did they change?
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. There are more than one way that land development is regulated. The municipality has control through implementing zoning bylaw regulations. So the front yard setback, for example, is a very common regulation that is put within a zoning bylaw. And zoning bylaws can require a different front yard setback for different areas of a community or different neighborhoods in proximity to one another. There is another mechanism in which the specific development of lots can be regulated. And that's something that the municipality does not control. It is something that the developer controls through implementing restrictive covenants or deed restrictions on properties. And it's not uncommon that a developer who wishes to implement a vision for a neighborhood to implement deed restrictions to compel eventual home builders to utilize a certain style of cladding on the exterior of the house, to require a certain minimum square footage or number of stories, for example. These types of developer deed restrictions are common and do occur in other neighborhoods within Chatham-Kent by other developers. So in follow-up, more research can be done on those particular comments, Councillor, but in general, what I've explained is typically how these are regulated.
Thank you, Ryan, for that clarification. So I would assume that all of these questions and responses will be further clarified in the FAQ page that goes out with the public notice for the February 14th meeting.
That's correct.
Okay. My second and third question would probably be for Tracy, the applicant. The Linwood residents have, of course, you've heard how dismayed and upset they are. One of the main reasons is that there's still a sign on this property at the west end of Fairview depicting the pre-2008 proposed South Linwood estate design. Is there any chance that sign could come down and it could be replaced with the actual planning application subdivision design that you showed us this evening?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I confirm that sign will come down immediately. We apologize. It had come with the property prior to the purchase, and it just hasn't been adjusted. So we would be more than happy to update that with the current proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Second question. Linwood residents are also wondering why Linwood is actually, or this piece of land has actually come to be called the South Linwood Estates. Longstanding residents of Linwood have informed me that originally Linwood included only Linwood, Joplin, Glenmar, and Cameron Aves. And that is East Lawn and Fairview Line weren't really even part of Linwood proper. Would you, as the applicant or the owner, consider removal of the Linwood name designation?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, again, members of the committee and council, yes, absolutely. Again, we inherited that name from the previous developer, and we would be more than happy to reconsider a new, innovative, more suitable name for your built-up neighborhood.
We'll look forward to some creative responses with regard to that then. Thank you, Tracy. My next question, actually, I believe would be for traffic and engineering. Although I know there's a future public meeting on this February 14th, but I wondered if somebody from traffic and engineering could comment on the management of anticipated increased traffic, particularly at the intersections of East Lawn and Park Ave, and also Fairview Line and 40.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. It's Mark McFadden here. So as part of this submission, as Tracy mentioned earlier, there is a TIS that will be included in the submission. So as part of that TIS, they would review these intersections. We don't have, they did submit one, but it was based on, I can't recall the date, but it's an older, there's an older report, so we asked them to provide us with an updated one.
So that's going to be part of the report on February the 14th, Mark? Or is that further down the line?
That would typically be further down, or Ryan, maybe I can defer that to you. When is the TIS required as part of the submission?
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. So we can't guarantee the developer would submit the updated traffic impact study prior to the February date. So in carrying out, meeting all of the different draft conditions of the subdivision approval, it's likely that it would take maybe into the spring. A lot of the subdivision planning is dependent on some other processes, particularly what you'll hear about the environmental assessment for the sewers. So some of these things are going to take several more months. So as far as information shared with the public and council on February 14th, we may simply comment that the details of the traffic impact study would be available at a later date. That would be maybe the most appropriate type of response at February 15th. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ryan and Mark. I assume that the lighting and noise and privacy mitigation measures, that we'd also have more specifics on that, Ryan and Tracy, for the February 14th meeting.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Yeah, some of this information we have now, and some of the things we'll likely refer to in the upcoming report are regarding lighting. We'd refer to Chatham-Kent's development standards, which do set some parameters for the way in which street lighting, is meant first and foremost to illuminate streets and not cause negative impacts to abutting properties. With regard to noise, one of the things that I can say now is that, background noise in the area from Highway 40 was found through the noise study to be the leading noise generator in the area, as well as some noise from the high voltage transmission power lines. So local traffic, would add to noise, but not necessarily exceeding what's already existing due to the communication road corridor.
All right, well, we'll be looking, I know the residents will be looking for information about that, but also about the privacy and any mitigation efforts to limit sight lines and between the Joplin and or Cameron northward to the south. I also would like someone to comment on hydro and those hydro lines. I understand that we'll be getting permits from Ontario Hydro, and that obviously they will encompass that 200-foot restriction. I wondered, Ryan, if you might speak about specifically the North Access Road. That's a sore point. It changed from the original application. It was supposed to be right directly from Linwood, correct? And I know the residents are very interested to see whether or not it can change its current location. They'd prefer it to go out to East Lawn, but there's an issue with regard to, again, Hydro's restriction that they like the streets underneath to be perpendicular to their lines. Can you elaborate on that?
I can. Assuming that everyone can now see an interactive map. Try to make it more visible. Okay. So in the north part of the approved subdivision, the subdivision lands highlighted here, the Ontario Hydro corridor here and here. The original submission included a local street connection to Cameron Ave directly opposite Linwood Ave. Through the public process, it was identified that that proposed road network would likely encourage traffic to travel through Linwood to Glenmar to access Park. So through consultation, along with at those council meetings back in 2006, it was decided by the developer that to mitigate that impact, that the road connection would be moved slightly west to provide an offset from Linwood Ave, which would likely encourage a more direct route left on Cameron and then north on East Lawn. And as a result of the final approval, the owner of the day secured through negotiating with Hydro One on behalf of Chatham-Kent ownership of a portion of property crossing the Hydro One corridor for the purposes of that street, as well as they secured rights for an easement to East Lawn, which was anticipated perhaps to be the location of some underground pipe network. So to your point, yes, Hydro One's policies typically, they say that crossings should be limited and that they should be perpendicular and not run linear through a corridor. But without further negotiations with Hydro One on alternatives, we can't say that for certain. However, if there was a change to this, there's an implication to the existing subdivision development approval, as well as an implication with future negotiations with Hydro One. Thank you.
So is it realistic or not realistic to anticipate that access road could be located still perpendicular to the hydro lines, but slightly westward? Is it at all viable?
It's not viable based on the current approved subdivision plan. Further west, there are residential lots at that location. So any change to that plan opens up the approval, and that's not within council's authority to do so at this time.
Thank you for that clarification. Next question, I think would involve that EA. Tracy, you said you anticipated that development would start in spring of 2022. I understood, Ryan, that the EA wouldn't even be back until later spring. Could you update the public on the current status of that EA and what the anticipated timeline is?
Thanks. Thank you. I'll make a brief comment and then ask Mr. Sunderland or Mr. Bernardi to discuss in a little bit more detail the EA process. So the environmental assessment process essentially will determine a design for the extension of the sanitary sewer system to the subject lands. That has to be designed and constructed prior to home construction. Now, the developer, provided they meet all of their draft conditions, which they're working diligently to do, can start construction on their site even prior. It's all about timing. So the Public Utilities Commission has a construction project, the developer has a construction project. The point I'm trying to make is at the end of the day, that they will connect. So the timing could mean that there is construction in the subdivision before there's construction outside of the subdivision. So I'll pass it over to the PUC now. Thanks.
Brian, it's Tim Sunderland here. So the EA process has actually started. Councillor Latimer, it has actually started. We're hoping for our first PIC in December or January. And again, is for the preliminary, the design component of that pump station and sanitary force main or trunk sewer. The expected EA should be completed somewhere January 2022, and the construction should be completed somewhere in the February 2023. So based on the process of this this phasing or the subdivision, we may or may not align up, but we'll be very close.
Thank you, Tim. And all the residents of Linwood will be notified about those PICs, not just the limited number that were notified originally about this planning application?
Yep, absolutely. Linwood will be notified as well as the Fairview line.
And East Lawn.
And East Lawn,
okay.
yes, correct.
Everyone. All right.
Yep.
Thank you. All righty. And I think my last question tonight. Oh, one thing about the Tim, about the cost. Can you, I know that residents have been reassured that the current residents will not have any assessment increase with this sewer installation, but can you just reiterate what will happen with regard to access or potential access for future?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Latimer. Through our EA process, or sorry, from the OMB hearing from 2008, we are required or obligated to provide a sanitary connection to the South Linwood Estates and a pump station. There is a cost sharing agreement within that OMB hearing between the PUC and the developer for the pump station and the sanitary trunk sewer. Depending on if it's a gravity sewer and its location running from South Linwood to Park Ave, because that's our nearest sewer line, depends on whether any residents will have the option to buy in or join up with that sanitary line. People in Linwood are not obligated to connect to any sanitary sewer that is required for South Linwood. Did that answer your question, Councillor Latimer?
The cost is what their concern is. They know they're not obligated, but are they going to have any increased assessment costs?
If you're talking taxes, I can't talk taxes. That's not my wheelhouse. I'm just the water and wastewater rates. So sanitary
Alrighty.
sewer will be provided for South Linwood, not the Linwood Estates, or sorry, yeah, the Linwood Estates, sorry.
Thank you, Tim. Actually, my last question centers around drainage in Linwood. This was one of the questions that was asked at the Friday community meeting we recently had, and it continues to be a sore point with many other residents. Could someone from drainage please give an update, a status report on the drainage issues in Linwood? A lot of work's been done over this past summer.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Caniff. Brigham Barlow here, Manager of Drainage. Just to give an update, we have completed work on the Willie Uffnell drain. That is the drain that runs along East Lawn. Several repairs have been made along there. There are still some basins to be added. We are waiting for a contractor to complete those works. Right now, I believe they're currently waiting on locates to be completed. There is also a road crossing that drains the road ditch on the north side of Glenmar to the south. This is west of East Lawn. We will be permanently capping that crossing to stop flows from entering that Willie Uffnall system. That is the only work currently happening. The mall drain, which is the drain that this development will be eventually outletting to, we don't anticipate any work to be done on it, as there will be a stormwater facility as part of this development that will release the flows at pre-development rates, and therefore no work should be required on the mall drain at this time.
Thank you, Bergen. I assume that if people have additional questions, they will send them in, or that, again, your response will be written in the report that's provided with the February 14th notification. And if residents have any further questions, they can send them in. Is that correct, Ryan?
Thank you. What I stated at the beginning of my presentation is that the report would take into consideration the responses that were read out as part of this meeting, because they're on record in this process. We can do our best to accommodate additional inquiries in the meantime, but I'd have to make a decision not to let additional inquiries delay bringing this item back to council for conclusion. So it'll be a judgment call there, but we'll do our best to answer the questions regardless, whether or not they're in the report or not. We'll still answer the questions from residents. Absolutely.
I understood, Ryan, and thank you again. That's it for me, Mayor.
Councillor Latimer, will you move the motion?
I certainly will.
Okay, Councillor Thompson?
Well, I'll certainly second it.
Okay, perfect. And the floor is yours.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I hope my internet can handle this. It's been spotty tonight. I just wanted to say thank you very much to Councillor Latimer for asking a lot of my questions for me. I do have some follow-up questions, though. I guess the first would be, Ryan, what is the plan for the other farmland around Linwood?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Caniff. The land use plan is set out by the Chatham-Kent official plan. It designates the surrounding lands as agriculture. These are the lands sort of south of Fairview line and west of East Lawn Boulevard. So these lands do not have any type of urban development rights currently, so they'd be expected to remain farmland for the foreseeable future. Should that ever change in the future, there will be public notification and a public process to change the land use. There is a farm parcel at the corner of Communication Road and Park Avenue, which currently has development rights for a church, and that zoning remains, but there's no current development applications to implement that use at this time. Thank you.
Okay. And while you say the foreseeable future, all it takes is an official plan amendment or change, right, to alter the foreseeable future.
Yeah, that's right. Changing the land use designations would be an official plan amendment. In general, what that would look like is an urban boundary expansion done through a process that we refer to as a comprehensive review. That's a process that will be occurring over the next year or so in Chatham-Kent. So it's a process that anyone in Chatham-Kent could follow along with and certainly see what types of decisions could come out of that process.
Okay, thank you. Keeping in mind that we're going to have another meeting on this in February, I'll try to limit my questions to ones that maybe I don't anticipate being answered then. For Mr. Sunderland, when it comes to the question regarding costs from Councillor Latimer, you gave a very PUC answer, kind of one I understood, but I'm afraid that maybe it wasn't quite as clear to residents. So I just wanted to make it super clear for them. There is no obligation for Linwood residents to attach to any sort of sanitary sewer plan, correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Thompson. There is no commitment the Linwood residents are going to connect. The sanitary sewer obligation for the PUC is solely for the South Linwood estates. And the costs associated to that are PUC and the developer.
Right. And that's kind of where you got me on the PUC answer that I totally understood. So, but then residents might not. So there won't be a line item, like a local improvement charge for anything like that showing up on from us or on their taxes. And I know you're not a
Councillor Thompson, you're cut off near the end. If you want to repeat that last part.
That's what I like I said, the internet out here in Cedar Springs is not wonderful. So I'm looking forward to high-speed investments. I guess what I'm trying to say is where there is going to be nothing showing up on their bill saying, like a connection charge or anything like that.
From the PUC, if they don't have a sanitary sewer connection, they won't be charged sanitary sewer fees. They have water connections, municipal water connections. They currently have water charges, both cubic meter and connection charge.
Okay. And at this point, I won't muddy the waters going into the petition process. We'll just say that if they don't want it, they're not going to have it. So thank you very much, Mr. Sunderland. My next question would be over to the drainage department. We heard that there is some drainage issues and some drains do need work and others don't. Can you explain how the drainage costs are shared and levied?
Yes, the drains all in Linwood are all municipal drains established under the Drainage Act, and under the Drainage Act, costs of construction and maintenance are assessed to any owner that owns property within the watershed of the drain that had been worked on or constructed. So those maintenance projects that were completed recently are assessed out to all properties affected by that drain. Again, these would be fairly minor charges, as it was only maintenance and not large works of construction, but we don't foresee any large works of construction on the drainage in Linwood at this time.
Okay, so going forward, we'll look ahead to when potentially these homes are built. That is additional property owners that will share the cost with the existing homeowners of Linwood, right?
On the mole drain is the drain this development will be using. So any owners that are on the mole drain will have this development sharing the cost of any work on that drain. That's correct. Okay, that's what I thought. And I admit there's a lot of drains around there and I don't know 100% which way they all flow. So thank you very much for that. I'm sure there are a lot of other questions and a lot of questions that are going to need to be answered come the February meeting. So I won't go over them again. I just wanted to say thank you to all of the residents that took part in the Friday before last on-site meeting. I thought it was productive. I thought it was very respectful, and I thought we got a lot of things answered. And I appreciate everybody who sent in emails and deputations. And I got to admit, as we move forward on this, I do feel a sense of camaraderie with the folks out there in Linwood. It's very similar to Cedar Springs. Big lots, no sidewalks, no streetlights, no sewers. And that's the way the people in Cedar Springs like it. And clearly that's the way the folks in Linwood like it. And that's what I feel is so challenging about all of this, because as we've heard, and I mean, as floats around, people and residents and homeowners do not fit into these little definitions we sometimes bandy about pro-development or anti-development, pro-affordability, anti-affordability. And when it comes down to it, our homes are a huge investment and also a huge expense for us. And they're incredibly emotional. They are our homes. We define ourselves in a large part by where we live. And we all know that. And the folks out there in Linwood have a sense of community and a sense of pride of ownership. And our communities are our identity. It's true. And identity is messy and it's not always rational. And to be honest, it doesn't always fit neatly into a planning model. So I think we need to find a way to address the concerns that we can
of the existing homeowners and recognize that by and large, to be honest, this ship has kind of sailed, and it's about making sure that we can protect and continue to nurture the community out there. So while we go through this boom time in housing here in Chatham-Kent, we need to recognize and validate the growing pains that existing communities will feel and not simply discount those concerns as NIMBYism. I think moving everything to February is a good step. If for no other reason, we can get a lot more information together. We can hopefully try to patch up some of the sins of the past as far as communication and notice, and that we can work to find a solution. Those are my comments. Thank you very much.
Councillor Finn, followed by Councillor Sagachi.
Thank you, Your Worship. Most of mine have been asked already, so just one for Tracy. Most of the residents have brought up about parkland area. Has there been any consideration about developing an area within this new development?
Thank you for your question through you, Mr. Mayor, and to the members of council. So again, the application before you this evening is just to request the reduction in the front yard setback. The subdivision plan is in place.
Tracy, sorry to interrupt again. It's very hard to understand you.
Yes, and I've shut off my screen as well. I hope that you can hear me now.
Maybe just a little bit closer to the microphone at least.
Okay, is this better?
A bit, yep.
Okay, so the application before you this evening is just to reduce the front yard setback. The subdivision itself has been developed and designed through draft plan approval, and we are going to implement that same design through construction. So for parkland, those have already been established through parkland in lieu of like payment for parkland. There is no parkland part of this development. And again, without the request for the relief, we could still be proceeding with the approved subdivision as per the OMB decision. So it's not necessary for this development to move forward with the relief. If we don't get the relief, we just have a bigger front yard and same size buildings in a smaller backyard. So want to just take this opportunity just to make sure council understands we're only asking for relief for a smaller front yard.
Oh, I understand that. I just thought I'd ask since that question came up a couple times in their deputations. Thank you.
Councillor Sagachi.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I had about 2 pages of questions here, and I think most of them been checked off except for 2, which was just asked by Councillor Finn. I did know that we are only approving the setbacks. I guess the only thing I do want to repeat is I do want to say thanks to Ryan and Nora as well as the community for coming out on that Friday morning. It was very prevalent to see the passion and the love they have for their community, and I think that it's very understanding to see why there are so many questions and concerns. I think one thing that this council has done very good, as you can see with the meeting that we had on site on Friday, is we try to do our best to communicate, and communication is so important. I think that we've done a good job at that, and I think that having this meeting on in February will also address additional concerns. The only question I have on my page that's left, I think, is I just wanted to speak, if Ryan, if you could just speak to the one question that you were able to answer on site a little bit, but just in case the people that weren't able to attend, there was some conversation about access to the subject property from Communication Road. Is it possible for you to just speak on that briefly?
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I can. There's 2 main reasons why development outletting through a new local street onto Communication Road is not possible. The first is that this property doesn't have frontage on Communication Road. There's a piece of property owned by Hydro One that connects the corridor to a switching station that's located off of Fairview line. Second constraint is that the municipality does not control access to Communication Road at this location. So the Ontario Ministry of Transportation has jurisdiction over that section of road with regard to intersections, and they would control that highway by not allowing any connections and requiring developments to utilize existing road networks in the area, in this case being, say, Fairview line. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate that clarification because it is something that was a concern. So just so I can stay in the process a little bit better, we're speaking about this the February meeting. Now, is the plan right now, maybe Madam Clerk, you can comment on this, is the plan to defer all of this to the February meeting, or is the plan for us to still be voting on the setbacks and then just have an additional planning service meeting for the community? I'm just trying to get that clarification.
I'll let Ryan answer that question.
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Thanks, Judy. My advice to council is to make the decision at the February meeting on this current application. Deferring the decision on this application is not a reflection of the overall impact to the community of this particular zoning bylaw amendment. Frankly, the reduction in the front yard setback is not, in my view, a major change to the zoning. So it on its own does not justify the deferral, in my view. However, public process in land use planning is in place for a reason, to involve neighbors in land use planning decisions that are likely to affect them when they're carried out. And council has an obligation to consider all of the submissions received before it makes a decision. And that's regardless of whether or not the submissions are raising points that are directly related to the application at hand, or if they are indirectly related, which is the case for most of these. And the reason why I advise council of deferring what otherwise is a fairly straightforward amendment to February is that there is a risk that, and even a risk in my view to the applicant as well, that a neighboring landowner could, formally challenge that, maybe there wasn't particular consideration to a certain comment, but also I believe deferring the application, demonstrates a commitment of the municipality to open and transparent government, which overall is something that all of administration here wants to promote as well. And I think this would be demonstrative of that. And in deferring the application, in my view, it doesn't actually delay the developer's plans because there's a number of other processes going on in the background. 3 months can be absorbed into the overall timeline without any real impact on the final time frame. So I hope that answers the question. I think it's the right thing to do. I think it's right to communicate clearly and concisely to the public, even if it's not the answers that they're hoping for. It would be the answers that are appropriate, and build some trust within the community as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jakes. I appreciate the comments, and I do think that. Sorry, I'm not sure. I'm getting some feedback there. I do think that it's very important that we have as much communication as possible moving forward on this this application. So Judy, I just ask that when it's time for voting that the exact, it's on the screen exactly as we're voting. Thank you.
Councillor Bondi.
Thank you, Mary Caniff. Well, first thing, just more of a comment. I hope we can do everything possible as a council to maintain the integrity of the Linwood neighborhood, which we're all familiar with. It's very unique. It's a great place. I don't live there. I've been there. And I do understand the concerns of the residents that this development, which we're not talking about tonight, obviously we're talking about a setback, but I do understand the concerns. I really do understand the need for parkland, because it looks like, as Councillor Thompson had mentioned, this ship has kind of sailed, that the development will likely go through. But if we do everything that we can, which is maybe not approve this setback thing, may allow for the neighborhood to retain some of what it's got right now as far as its uniqueness. But my question is, if we're going to defer this whole thing, this whole recommendation to February, then why have we gone through all of this tonight? We've spent, I don't know, a long time, maybe an hour on this. It's maybe a question of process, but shouldn't we have done this at the very beginning of this and not gone through all these questions and answers that we're going to go through again, I assume, in February? Can somebody answer that? Or maybe it's rhetorical, I don't know, but I would just kind of like to know, because I'm sure there's a lot of people listening and watching that are wondering why we spent this much time on something that we're just going to kick down the road until February. So if somebody can respond to that, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I think there's a benefit to utilizing everyone's time tonight who is here to address questions of council, to do our best early in this process to communicate with the neighborhood. Communication early and often is best practice. Admittedly, there will be more deliberation at a future public meeting in February. You know, it's possible that new information will be deliberated at that time, information that wasn't, we weren't prepared to provide answers on tonight. So I don't think there was a perfect way forward. I think we tried to do our best today to determine what the best go forward plan was. And this is what we came up with. Thank you.
All right, seeing no other questions, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in and motion passes 16-1 and 1 abstained.
Okay, next on the agenda is notice of motion. There is not any of those. Non-agenda business. Anyone have that? Any of that? Councillor Wright, followed by Councillor Harrigan.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I've got a big thank you tonight and a congratulations for one of our volunteer firefighters here in Highgate, Station 10, Doug Ford, a captain, who just retired on Sunday after 57 years of service.
Wow. Councillor Harrigan, followed by Councillor Oche.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. You may notice, councillors, that my background today is the Talbot Trail closure site. I've chosen that background to do some promotion on the public consultation process that is live. There will be a virtual Zoom meeting held tomorrow, November 16th. However, you have to register for the meeting. So the best way to register for the meeting is to leverage our CK Info email address or call 311 or 360-1998 And the Zoom meeting takes place from 6:30 till 8 p.m. tomorrow and is in regards to the Talbot Trail closure. Thank you.
Councillor Oche, followed by Councillor Sakachi.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to bring up for the people in the Merlin area, the Merlin Area Community Assistance Collection will be Saturday from 12 to 4 p.m. There'll be porch pickup in Merlin and Dealtown, and there'll be drop-off spots in rural areas such as Fletcher's Church, St. Andrews, St. Luke's, Talbot Street Church, Charing Cross Church, Wesley Church, and North Buxton Park, as well as the Merlin Kinsman Hall. I'm hoping as many people as can help us out to the regular Christmas baskets that people can apply for as well. If anybody needs to apply for one, you can get a hold of myself as well. And also the most needed gifts are for kids ages 9 to 15. Thank you very much. Oh, and I'd like to thank all the volunteers that are helping that day. Thank you.
Councillor Sakachi, followed by Councillor Kirkwood-White.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I apologize to Mr. Kelly for this question, as I was having some difficulties with my devices for about 4 hours today, but did want to ask him a brief question in regards to the arena operations. Getting a lot of feedback in regards to our canteens in the municipality. It's been noted that a lot of canteens in other areas are open. Just curious to see if that's provincial direction, or if is it something that we are looking into, and when can our residents utilizing our arenas be able to access the canteens?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's Thomas Kelly, General Manager of IES. We are looking into this right now. Our concerns have been just the number of changes that our arenas have gone through, and quite frankly, our lack of capacity when it comes to staff. So it's something on our radar. It was just something we wanted to stabilize the last change that the province made. We're actively looking at what we can do to bring the canteens back on service. So we will be reporting very shortly in the public what canteens will be open. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. I do keep hearing the relation to the staffing aspect. So is it safe to say this upcoming budget that we're going to see significant surpluses in the budget for staffing in those aspects, since it keeps related to the amount of staff that we have in the infrastructure areas of the rec?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will have to review that. At times we've had a lack of staff. For example, we haven't had to utilize our canteen staff, but they've been redeployed in other areas, for example, with additional cleaning in particular. So I would have to check on that, and we'll be sure to check into that and report back.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly.
You're welcome.
Councillor Kirkwood-White.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is a little plug for the arts in Chatham-Kent. At the Thames Art Gallery, there will be a new exhibition opening on Friday from 7 to 9. And there are 3 exhibitions opening simultaneously, all featuring women artists. The first is Doris Slater Titus, Canada's first comic book artist, who was born in Chatham. Danielle Coleman, who does fiber art and collage installation, which is inspired by love and romance, and various selections from the permanent collection of works of women artists with Chatham-Kent connections. And all of these exhibitions will be on until the 16th of January. In addition to that, I just want to remind everybody of the gift this coming Saturday. Please leave a gift or a food product on your porch at noon, and the volunteers that have been working diligently over the last several weeks will come and pick it up. Thank you.
And I have one as well. Over the last several weeks, as everyone knows, we've been working hard to find the replacement for Don Shropshire as he's retiring. And on behalf of council, I would very happy to say that we're hiring Thomas Kelly as the new CAO. Moving forward, the official media release and everything will be coming out in the morning. So we're looking forward to that. Reading of the bylaws, first and second. We have removed item 10 out of that. Councillor Solomon and Councillor Pinsino, please.
Moved. Seconded, your worship.
Okay, anyone opposed? Motion carried. Third and final reading, Councillor Foss and Councillor Hall.
So moved. Seconded.
Anyone opposed? Motion carried. The resolution of council in closed session adjournment. Councillor Crew and Councillor McGrail can wrap it up for us.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I move that Chatham-Kent Council adjourn to its next meeting to be held on Monday, November 22nd, 2021, and that Chatham-Kent Council authorize itself to meet in closed session on that day to discuss any matters permitted by the Municipal Act.
And I second.
Okay, anyone opposed to wrapping it up at 9:04? Hearing none, motion carries. Have a great night, everyone.